I'm not reading like Bomb Bauwerk's like critique of the history of interest theories because like I want to convince people of libertarianism. I just like theory a lot, so it's just
You find
what I'm just like.
economics interesting.
Yeah, like
KingSithis is now
it's actually like
live-streaming
weird how
World of
interesting I find it.
Warcraft,
Like
debate and ANCAP.
it's like almost unhealthy. So like that's what I just am so interested in and I care about like much more than anything else in the world. So
Nice.
not like, by the way, I don't look down on or disparage anyone who like does the communication route, by the way. Like I hope I don't give you guys that impression. It's just like
How dare
just,
you
like,
disparage us?
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I like to read debates, like the written transcripts of debates, sometimes in the forms of letters that were back and forth between Ludwig von Mises and John Maynard Keynes. They argued nonstop, but I only do that when I'm trying to jack off.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting.
I was joking, but I feel like Keynes would be excited by that.
Maynard Keynes. I hate that guy.
John Maynard Keynes was like mostly gay.
Did he like kids?
I don't know much about him and his personal life, to be honest with you.
I've heard the kids thing. That's a question mark. But he openly was habitually he tended to date men.
John Maynard Keynes was a genius.
He did also have a wife at one point, though. I think he was like a gay-leaning bi.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean,
evil.
John Maynard. Yeah, no, I mean his economic theory was all warped, but like he was a genius.
Are you saying he's evil based on like the alleged pedophilia, the child molestation?
No, I think he's
talking about
evil
his
because
economics.
his economic theory is evil.
Okay, no, you're not evil for having stupid ideas.
He is.
I think Marx was a fucking dick, not because of what his ideas
Marx
were.
was evil.
Marx was a shithead in his personal life. He was a complete.
I wish if I could go back in time and shoot him, I would.
You would be doing the people in his personal life a big favor. He was a total scumbag in how he conducted himself. He was completely exploitative of everybody in his life. I know how ironic that is, because like his whole fucking theory revolved around being against exploitation. But he was one of the biggest fucking like user exploiter guys there was.
What a dirtbag.
He just lived off the kindness of others purely. I mean, I got nothing against charity recipients and stuff, but he would also be just a complete monster to them. He was totally abusive to his loved ones.
Yeah, I read the Marx the Man by Thomas Sowell that goes over his life.
I haven't actually read any Sowell. My mother has met Thomas Sowell, weirdly.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, she went to Seattle University, and he went there. And by that point, she was interested in conservatism and stuff. So she went to where Thomas Sowell was speaking, and she actually got a chance to meet him.
Wow.
She likes Thomas Sowell.
I like Thomas Sowell.
I'm making my mom sound way more base than she is.
Normally people would jump in by now, but I guess no one. Maybe I should change.
Nobody wants that smoke.
I kind of figure we're just bullshitting around.
How about I change the title? Minimum wage bad and debate and caps.
Oh god, if you're gonna do that, then I might stay for a second.
I want to do minimum wage bad.
Way back in the day, I used to write articles for like the Odyssey Online and Steam It and stuff. I used to make good money doing it too. One time I won, not won, but I earned $1,600 from one article, like in less than a day. That was pretty good. Anyway, I was also consistently like the top I was consistently the article of the week, like top voted on the Odyssey Online for a while. And one of the articles that I published at that time, and I must have been around y'all's age range at that time. I'm like 19 or 20 or something.
I'm 28.
Oh, okay. Somehow I got 20 in my
You guys
head.
are old.
I get. Anyway, so when I was like 19 or 20, like 2016-ish, I posted an article called "Raising the Minimum Wage Will Make You Poorer," and it was mostly just about like cost push inflation. A point that I realize Holden may find problematic.
Yeah, that is problematic for sure.
Yeah, I knew you would say that, but
It wouldn't cause inflation, but it would cause higher prices.
not inflation in the. I specifically said cost push inflation. That doesn't mean an increase in the volume of currency. Inflation generally does mean more currency, but cost push inflation just means prices across the board increase or can increase based on costs across the board increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so of course, if you spend more for whatever the good is, like let's say the price went up and it would, and it's I can explain why. Like for if you raise the minimum wage, it's a binding price control. Then like the price would rise for whatever they're producing. But but if that price rises, then people have less money to spend on other things. So the general price level wouldn't go up with more money or with the same amount of money. It would the general price level would stay the same. It's just that
Your
it's
what?
just
Just
that people.
supply would lower.
What's that?
What? Just supply would lower. I
So
think
yeah, and
markets are
and-
likely to shift from being more labor-intensive markets to less labor-intensive markets. That is, obviously, it hurts labor-intensive markets the most. They're either going to have higher prices that still get paid, or simply lower volume of sales and production.
What's
Yeah,
up,
so the
JR? Do you
total-
support the minimum wage, JR?
Yeah, I support the minimum wage.
Why?
Oh my god.
Because I don't think it is, I don't think it's conscionable for, any person to be making, below the minimum wage, because it's literally not a livable amount of money. I don't care if it creates economic efficiencies, it's like, if you're not willing to pay a person enough money to live, then there's not, then why would...
Okay, if
What determines
nobody
a
wants,
wage?
if nobody wants to hire me, if I am not a very good worker, terrible experience, whatever, or just I'm not good at much, or I'm disabled, whatever it is. If nobody wants to hire me, but then one guy comes along and he is willing to hire me for $6 an hour, should he be told he doesn't get to do that, and I now don't get to work that job?
You should be told he has to do it at a I don't know, what minimum wage are we like
He's
assuming
not,
here? Like,
but he didn't offer $12 an hour. He's not. I'm not worth that much to him.
but
I'm
he
only
needs
worth
he needs a worker though.
Well, let's
Not
assume.
necessarily.
Let's
I
assume
mean, for
like
instance,
and
if
then
he
the
just wants somebody to sweep, if he's like the manager owner of a restaurant, like he's the owner but owner operator of a restaurant, and it would be nice to have somebody sweeping his floors, but he could just do it himself. It's just annoying. He's willing to pay $6 an hour for it. He's not willing to pay 12. So he doesn't have to hire somebody for it. It would just be nice, but he's only willing to do it if he can do it very cheaply. In that scenario, is he committing some act of unconscionable aggression against me by saying, "Hey, here's one option, take it or leave it"?
Most people don't. Well, the thing is, most people don't have a. It's not. You can't. Well, it's not a livable amount of money. I don't know, like, what you expect. Like,
Livable
someone
is very much variable. I mean, look,
livable is
I live.
variable, but in the cost of living in the country that you presumably live in, America, I don't think
I've lived on Holy. I've
well,
literally lived on
livable wage. Like, why are you owed a livable wage?
Why are you owed a livable wage? Wait, do you not think that like people deserve to live?
I think people deserve to live, but not at the expense of other people.
Not at the
Right, like you have every right to eat food. You do not have the right to come into my refrigerator and take away my food without my permission.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have a right to live. You don't have a right to make me subsidize you living.
Or
It's not
another
like-
another example would be
It's a negative right.
you have a right to live, but you don't. If you needed a like, let's say you needed a kidney in order to live, you don't have a right to steal my kidney in order for you to live, right?
Likewise, we Americans would say you have a right to have a gun, but you don't have a right to make me buy
bodily
a gun.
autonomy. That's different to monetary policy.
Is my money not the product of my labor? Did I not use my body to labor to produce my income?
Depends. Depends if you are the boss of someone else, in which case you made money off of their labor.
Maybe I
Bosses-
labored a great deal as an owner operator. You know, maybe I'm a Hooper.
The reason
started
why
out-
the reason why bosses make money is because they allocate scarce resources to its most productive route. What they do is they manage firms, right, and make sure that they are profitable.
Bosses is a loose term. I mean, like owner, like the owner of the company.
It goes the same for both an owner or a boss. The idea of a boss.
Well, the difference is a boss's job is to allocate resources, while the owner owns those resources. There's a difference.
Well, either way, what I'm trying to say is that they're both in it to make money. They're both in it to. The idea is to make more money than what they spend. And if you hire somebody who's a boss, right, as an owner, the idea is for them to manage the company and make sure that you're making more money than they're spending. And if they're able to make more money than they spend and they're able to make a profit, that signals to the business that boss is doing something good or doing something right to make more money, right? And if they're making a loss, well, that signals to the business, oh, well, this guy's not really doing a good job, right?
Kind of a somewhat random aside here. Let's go back. Let's reverse the clock and go back to the late 1800s, to the origin of minimum wage laws. Suppose you exist back then, and I ask you, do black people deserve to have jobs?
Wait, am I supposed to act like someone in the 1800s? Like, I don't know, like the
Yes.
average person
Act like
probably
yourself.
wouldn't agree with that.
Act like yourself. You're you. You're you now with your current values.
Yeah. Black people, black people deserve to have jobs in the sense that they deserve to not be discriminated.
Sure.
They deserve to have an equal opportunity to get a job as a white person.
Okay, now what if a black person is they're poorer, they're accustomed to living in squalor in the aftermath of slavery. They were very poor. The free black people whose parents had been slaves, they weren't basking in wealth.
Right now
they
I'm
were
at
very
level
poor.
15 on this character, and I'm
And
like level.
they had a competitive
I think 20
advantage
on my
over
other.
white workers because white workers had a higher standard of living, and therefore they demanded a much higher wage. Black people were willing to work for far less than white workers. Now, would you say that it's justifiable and fair and acceptable for black workers who live in poverty to kind of leverage their low standard of living by getting the job over a white competitor worker, getting the job over a white worker by accepting offering to do it for a lower amount of money? Is it okay for the blacks to be acting like that?
Could I explain this one?
Well, the only reason the black people had to offer lower amounts of money than the white people is because the employers were racist, and so I mean
their labor was
in other words, can I jump on this? So
because of racism. I'm not saying that there wasn't because of racism, but for one reason or another, be it racism, the labor of a black person, unfortunately, was worth much less than the labor of a white person. The only way that somebody was going to hire a black person is if it meant the same work gets done, but for far cheaper.
At that time, see, you got to understand, at that time, there was a lot of people who valued black work less than white work, or valued white workers more than black workers. So if they raised the minimum wage to what the white workers were getting paid and forced every business to pay what the white workers were getting paid, they would just not hire black people anymore, and they would just hire only white people. And then like all those people were like lost their jobs. The reason why they hired them was because they were willing to work for less money. And that's also true for like but the thing is, nowadays it isn't really that like that anymore. People aren't as racist.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
But how it affects us today is that it has the same effect on people who are maybe not black, but just people who are just getting into the market, or young people, older people, people who are just overall has a lower productivity than your average person. Those are people
or
who
just anybody who is a marginalized group.
Mhm.
Whatever group of people is considered to be less valuable on labor markets, whether it's Mexicans tend to make less. In many areas, still black people to some extent. Or if you live somewhere that people are rather hostile toward transgender people, then their labor will tend to be worth less.
Also, can I ask you a quick question? Do you think being an intern should be illegal?
I think that internship isn't inherently bad, but there are ways in which internship is done that can be like exploitative. But I don't think internship is inherently should be inherently illegal.
I think we're
why is it okay?
all over the place.
Why is it okay to pay somebody no money, right? But it's not okay to pay them less than the minimum wage.
Because
Like it has to either be zero or a lot. It can't be a little bit.
It can't be in
well,
between.
the minimum wage is not a lot. It's like it's not even like
No, it is very. You're right. It is.
The minimum wage in the United States is like below the like median cost of living.
Well,
in
the federal
United
minimum
States.
wage within the United States, I think it's like $8 an hour or so.
Yeah.
So many states have their own. Federally, it's way lower than the natural minimum wage. When I say natural minimum wage, I just mean the market price floor for labor. That nobody's willing to work for less, so it doesn't matter what law you have. In other words, if hypothetically there was no minimum wage at all, you're not going to find people willing to work for 50 cents an hour because they don't have to. There's plenty of people trying to hire for jobs. No one has to settle for 50 cents an hour. It's got nothing to do with the minimum wage. Likewise, in the United States, there's not really people making $7.50 an hour, even in states where that's legal. The natural floor for labor, at least for American labor, tends to hover these days in the ballpark of, $10 an hour or so, roughly.
So you would say that like the California minimum wage causes inefficiencies then?
Absolutely.
JR, what determines a wage?
It causes inefficiencies, it causes unemployment, but we didn't actually get back to we kind of sidestepped and didn't address the origin thing. Back in those days, the reason minimum wage laws were created was by white unions, by white labor unions, for the explicit stated purpose of keeping black people off the job market, by taking away their competitive edge, making it illegal to hire people for less than the white workers were willing to work for.
Look,
now, within that context, would you say that those white unions were doing the right thing?
Well, no, because they were.
He's not going to agree with the reasoning, obviously, because
I'm
the
not going to
reasoning
agree
is
with
racist.
the reasoning, and obviously, like saying, "Oh, well, you support X." Well, did you know that X was invented by racist people?
I'm not
a genetic fallacy.
I'm not calling you a racist at all.
I'm not saying you're calling me a racist. I'm saying you're employing a genetic fallacy by saying the people who created this idea were racist, so therefore it must be bad.
No, I guess what he's trying to say is, at that time,
implication.
Let
me say what my own implication is.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll say what my own implication is. Mm-hmm. My own implication is that, as evidenced by the origin of minimum wage law, minimum wage laws stand to most people, any group of people that for one reason or another any group of people, whether it's based on race or some kind of gender thing or religion or whatever it is, whatever group of people is disliked the most and the most discriminated against and marginalized in a society is going to have a lower value of their labor, unfortunately. Uh, it's not any particular group necessarily. It's just whatever group a particular society tends to not like. And the way those people can still have jobs is by undercutting workers that aren't from that group.
JR, what determines a wage?
What determines a wage?
My point being that it hurts marginalized peoples the most. Minimum wage laws making it illegal to hire people whose labor is worth less than a certain amount. It specifically preys on target
But why was their labor worth less?
because
What
people don't
determines a
like
wage?
them. If
Well,
it's a
because the
racist
value of their
society,
productivity was worth less.
the value of labor is set by the same market forces as the value of corn or wheat or anything else. That is, you have an equilibrium of supply and demand. The price will be found somewhere between the lowest that the seller will accept and the highest that the buyer will pay. That's true of every resource, be it a good, a service, labor.
But
People
JR,
are.
like, what?
Yeah, all right,
If you have a
I think Hold'em got a question. Go ahead.
I just want to ask, like, what determines a wage?
I think he already answered that, but
I kind of did just answer that.
Like
Yeah.
it-
Well, he was
Well, like,
asking
in-
JR.
In
I
like your
wasn't the
view,
one.
like what? Like in your view, what determines a wage, JR?
what determines the
Like,
wage?
what's your theory?
I mean, I agree. I mean, I agree that the supply, it's the combination of the
Supply and demand.
supply and demand. Yeah, the
So when supply and demand are equal, what is the wage equal to?
when supply and demand are equal, well, it depends what do you mean?
JR,
What is the wage?
Just give him.
Yeah.
Just tell him the answer. I wouldn't question
Holden.
too much on it.
Holden, it sounds like you're trying to confuse him. Let's not do that. Please.
Yeah. Just try to tell him what you're trying to. The point you're trying to make, if you can.
Basically, in equilibrium, the wage is equal to what economists say marginal revenue product. Okay, so in equilibrium, the simple way of saying equilibrium is supply and demand are equal. Okay, so for an example would be a worker produces $20 in revenue per hour worked. Okay, in equilibrium, they're paid approximately $20, roughly $20, not exactly.
Well, they would be
so if
paid
you-
less than $20 because obviously the company needs to pay them less than
Uber
the
Eats.
total value of their label to make a profit, right?
Yeah, so
Or
there's
even-
it's slightly less because of interest. Okay, but that makes it like a lot more complicated. And I mean I can explain it, but I don't know if it's that necessary.
Interest is
for the
basically,
conversation.
in a short way, is just a reward for basically
Foregoing
creating
present
goods. Yeah, for going present goods,
So,
and then
foregoing
Here we
present
go.
goods. Yeah.
Mm.
So like right, so the capitalist entrepreneur is supplying present goods to the worker. So the worker gets to use the capital goods that the capitalist entrepreneur supplies to him, and that raises the product of labor. So his wage is higher because of the capitalist entrepreneur. Like if he tried to work for himself, he'd make much less money, generally speaking. So the capitalist entrepreneur raises the marginal product of labor, and therefore the wage is higher. So there's a general tendency in a market economy for the wage to equal the marginal revenue product of labor, discounted for interest. So,
Okay.
so if you
So-
raise the minimum
can I
wage
explain
above,
this in layman's terms?
So I'm not like he's such like a he's like an econ guy. He's like an abstract econ guy, and he uses all these fancy econ terms. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
I
not
was
So
everyone
I can
is
explain
a
this in
econ
layman's
guy.
terms. So, and basically, when you go to a job, that business makes money, right? They have to make more money than what they spend. And when you go to
Yeah,
a
I
job,
understand this.
they have to make more money out of you than what they spend on you, right? If they don't make more money out of you than what they spend on you in terms of like your wage and, stuff like that, then they're not going to make a profit. There are some people that don't bring enough money into that business to justify So if a person doesn't bring in enough money to that business to justify their wage, and then they have two choices to either make up for it somehow by either raising prices or by firing that person or by not hiring new people, right? And that's what ends up happening whenever you raise the minimum wage, because you're raising the minimum wage on every single business. And of course, not every single business, like let's say we raise it to $15 an hour, right? Not every business is going to be able to afford to pay every one of their employees $15 an hour. So if they can't afford to pay every one of their businesses $15 an hour, what are they going to do? They're going to have to make up that money somehow. They could fire people. They can raise their prices. They could go out of business, which then means everybody gets basically fired. There's a couple things that they could do. So that ends up leading to higher rates of unemployment or higher prices overall.
Well, but there are.
So doesn't that mean that nobody's there to buy your product anymore?
Huh?
Yeah, doesn't this seem like really counterintuitive to how economics works?
No,
It seems like nobody buys your product anymore.
Because when you raise the price of how much it costs to run the business, they have to make businesses. Not every business will be able to afford that added cost, so they have to make up for that added cost.
Well, yeah, there's some businesses like who can't afford to pay their like workers a living wage. Like those, yeah, like in those cases, I don't think you should be paying out people if you can't afford to pay them like living shit. But like, yeah.
So then, if there's a business, let's say there's a business, of 30 people. Oh, go ahead. Then.
Yeah. For like the subsection of the business. Oh my god.
Taxation. Hold on. Let him finish.
Holy fuck, Jesus.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But for like the subsection of the businesses who like can, they very much so like can take it out of other like profit margins, and they're likely to do so. At least it seems statistically.
Yeah, but that's assuming that every single business will be able to afford that minimum wage hike.
Assume that every single business will be able to afford the minimum wage hike.
So what the argument that I'm making the argument that I'm making is of the businesses that won't be able to afford to pay every one of those one of their employees that amount of money, they have to make up that money somehow. And let's say you have
your product more expensive, you could like start either paying.
So that leads to higher
like
prices. Making your price that leads to higher prices. Firing people leads to higher rates of unemployment. Or going out of business, that also leads to higher rates of unemployment. Let's say you have a business of 30 people, and that business goes under.
Can you show me something
that's
that links,
30.
Like, raising the minimum wage to unemployment?
There's no study that I.
It's a priori.
Can show you. Yeah, it's a priori.
Oh, it's a priori. Well, I don't really think that makes sense a priori. If it's just a mechanistic explanation, I'm just gonna like cite at you a couple of other things that could just be.
Wait, so we could go through this very easily. If you're a business
owner, I don't know why
owner,
you're trying to go through it before I even get a response out.
So if you let's say you're a business owner,
you just said it was a priori, so I'm just
so let's say you're a business owner. Hold on.
You just said your reasons. You're interrupting me. Don't tell me to hold on. I don't know why you're doing that.
Let's say you're on a business.
Why are you doing this?
And you can't afford to pay all your business. You can't afford to pay all your customers $15 an hour. What are you gonna do?
Yep. Be normal. You should be normal right now.
I'm being perfectly normal. I'm just asking you a simple question. What are you going to do?
That you're no longer competitive. Okay. Yeah, so what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and choke out a response. But what it seems like you're going to do is refuse to engage with the response and act like for some reason, because you can stall the conversation for a really long time, that you're making a point.
Nobody's stopping you from speaking. Go.
Yeah, no, you very much so were earlier. But continue to do it. Now... When I was talking earlier, what I was referring to was that what you can do is you can obviously increase your prices to the point where you're no longer competitive with other businesses which are able to do so. Well, why wouldn't they have done that before? Why would they have not increased their prices to the point where they're not competitive?
Yeah,
because that's
there's
stupid.
A profit maximizing. So there's a there's a profit maximizing price given a demand schedule, right? So
there's a profit maximizing price given a demand schedule, and there's reasons to lower that profit maximizing price.
Okay. Well, the point is
you have market innovations, and those are adapted by the wider market. So
the point is that if a business has a profit maximizing price, if they go above it, then they lose net income. If they go below it, they lose net income. So if I could have just raised my prices prior to the minimum wage, why wouldn't I have done that before?
Why wouldn't you have done that before? Yeah, that's why you.
Yeah, if I could have made more profit.
That's why you wouldn't. That's why you wouldn't try and not be competitive by trying to run a business that you can't afford.
Yeah, but them
I'm sorry?
raising their prices.
Yeah, that's why you don't run a business that you can't
Hold
afford.
on, you do realize that you're
So,
agreeing.
I'm
with
trying
my point.
to. No, this is
You're agreeing with
profound.
my
I've
point,
still not
the
been able to
argument
choke
that
out
I'm-
my point because I'm constantly interrupted.
Yeah,
Right,
but
but you can
you
go ahead and
just
try and
made-
finish your other interruption.
You literally
right, for
just
the person
made.
who's very much so
Okay,
not preventing me from
stop
speaking
talk-
right now.
Stop.
Yeah, I know,
So
because you're not preventing me from speaking right now, right?
I'm just gonna lower your volume for a second. So you're literally agreeing with my point, and my point being was that when you force businesses to pay a higher wage to all of their employees, they then have to raise the prices of their goods and services, which means higher prices at the, for people who buy stuff. So you're agreeing with me.
And I disagree with that. I disagree that it leads to higher unemployment because there are also larger corporations that can take up and employ more people. That's just like very
You know
clearly
what
not to
the
drive
terms
you.
So
yeah,
give-
very
so
clearly
give
that's
the
not
jobs
detailed
to
by
the-
anything that you were saying. So
you support
just a second, if I can
corporate
get a single
corporations.
word out. Listen, if you're just not willing to engage with the arguments, you can just tell me. I'll let you have a bitch fit.
I'm the only one having a bitch fit here is you.
Really? Because it seems to me like you're constantly interrupting with your entire gaggle of friends, and you're all doing very poorly. So, if I can get back to what I was saying earlier, because there are larger corporations that can employ larger sums of people, it's not really the case that it necessarily leads to larger rates of unemployment. And most of the data that I've seen seems to work counterintuitive. There are a lot of reasons for this. One of the reasons that was cited earlier on being that there are reasons to create like larger supply chains whenever you
And can I?
do. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go on.
I was
What are
just
we
gonna
doing
ask
now?
King. Can I respond to this?
Go on. Go off. Slide.
Okay, cool. So,
why do you sound like you have an ear rape filter on your mic?
Yeah, your microphone
Yeah, it sounds
gain
like
is
you're
like really
talking
high.
like a.
Is it
A
just too high
giant-
right now?
It sounds like you're talking in a empty room, like a giant empty room where your voice is bouncing against the
That's
walls.
really cool.
I mean, now
Was
it sounds
the
better.
entire point? Was it the whole
Yeah,
point?
much better now.
I mean,
Um,
before it
Okay,
wasn't, but now it's
fantastic.
better.
Is there anything that we can
Cool.
base out the large
So
unemployment
Val-
claim in? Is there literally
Val,
anything?
yeah,
That's anything.
So about what determines a wage?
Is that an answer to my question?
It's a question.
Yeah. I'm asking, is that going to be an answer to mine?
I was
a
at,
question.
What was your question?
I asked you
What was
before.
the friend of-
Why the fuck am I? What the fuck is this? I'm sorry. Is the other person been in here? I'm trying to.
What?
If
So I guess you don't know
who's
what
who.
determines a
If you had
wage.
a
Okay, no
question-
problem.
If
No,
you
I'm just
had-
actually just
before that,
confused
I
because
heard
the only reason I'm
something-
talking to literally any of you people is because somebody else wanted to hear me talk to you, and I think they've already left the voice channel.
All right, well then, I mean,
I thought
nobody's
I
making
heard
you
It's
say
like
say
I
it.
was going to have a conversation because it seemed like it could have been interesting, but it seems like I'm just getting constantly interrupted.
Well then,
It
you're more
seemed
than
a
welcome
minute
to
I
ago.
leave.
see. No, never mind. Keep going. Go off.
I
Slide.
thought I heard a minute ago
Something to the effect of that large corporation will just scoop up the displaced workers. But why are we assuming that those large corporations are now operating at some big deficit of workers?
No, I
where
said they certainly could. You made the claim they wouldn't.
they only
yeah.
would in the scenario
Yeah,
that
so
they
you know
need
you
those
made that
workers.
claim. The burden's on you. Don't try and burden shift. Go ahead and make the proof for that claim. Show me something.
Of what claim? I'm not saying that they
He
op-
didn't
that
say
right
You
now.
don't- you
Wait,
don't
he
remember
never
the
made
claim?
that claim. He never made that
You,
claim.
you don't remember the claim? That they would raise
do you remember
lead
what
to
the
higher
claim was?
unemployment? Yeah.
Yeah, so
that
the claim was-
raising of the minimum wage lead to higher rates of unemployment.
Yes,
So,
that's the only
I
claim
I
we
didn't actually
made.
make
You're-
that claim, but it's
Yeah,
true.
Okay, now that we
so
all
let me
remember the
state it-
claim, I'm
let
glad
me
we all
state it
remember the
more
claim
precisely.
now, right? Because
Let me
everybody
state
else
it
is
more
having a really
precisely.
hard time remembering it earlier. Can you show me?
So let me state it more precisely, okay? Because you're missing some nuance here. So a priori,
Okay.
if you raise the minimum wage law, you cause more unemployment than you otherwise would counterfactually. Is the claim?
I don't know why we take that a priori. That seems like an empirical claim to me. I have no idea why the fuck would be taking that. Yeah,
It's
so
an a priori.
Again,
It's
because
the
we live in
reason
a
for
world of
which,
scarcity.
the reason for, it doesn't seem like that to me.
We don't live in a world of scarcity?
No, doesn't.
What
seem
would
like
make
that.
you think that?
I don't know why
Are
you
you
think we
okay?
live in a world of scarcity. You made that claim.
We
Why are you
do?
burden shifting again?
Hold on. Because we live
No,
in
you
a,
just made that claim. Go ahead,
do?
show me that.
because we live in a world of objects that can't be copied infinitely.
No, but that doesn't mean we live in a world of scarcity. There could just be an abundance of objects, right?
We don't have an abundance
Val,
of
do-
every object.
Whoa. But that doesn't mean we live in a world of scarcity, does it?
Yes, we do.
Dude,
That means that
economic-
we live in a world that has
Because there
scarcity.
isn't an abundance of literally every single object. We live in
Yes.
a world of scarcity.
do you know what
and
scarcity
thus,
is?
We live
there
in a-
must be unemployment.
We live in a world of people that that there's objects in this world that always don't
That
add
is
up.
true.
That don't add up to what we always want, right? So I want $1 million apartment, right?
So,
But
I agree
because
we
I don't make
always
$1
get what
million
we want, but that's
I
not really
can't get
response
one,
to my-
right? So because of
point.
and what that proves is that we live in a world of scarcity, correct?
No, it proves that there are things that you can't get.
Yeah, because
they're scarce.
because
No,
What's
I could
produced
stop you
is
from
not-
getting something by blocking you from getting it. I could have like a lot of something and then stop you from getting it with a gun.
So
No, because
how
do you
could
know
you
what an economic-
how can you
You
make
don't
an abundance
understand
of
that?
beachfront houses?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do you agree with
do you
that?
know-
Do you
Val,
agree with you
Val,
not
do you-
be?
do you know
don't
what an
agree that I could
economic
have a
good is?
large. So just a second. I'm not sure why everybody's talking over each other. To address the one point, right? You don't agree with that?
Okay, make
you
your
said
claim.
if you're trying to block something off.
Yeah, no, you don't agree.
you
There could be
realize
abundance
if
of
there's
something.
a-
You can also not
yeah.
get it in certain situations.
No, if there's
you
an-
don't
if there's
agree
an
with that.
abundance-
No, I'm
Yes,
asking
what
KingSithis.
I'm
this.
saying-
Hold on,
Go
hold on, I'm
ahead.
trying to answer
I
your
do
No,
question.
don't
agree
try and
with
bail
that.
out your friend right now.
Can
I'm
you
asking the person who
calm
just made the
down?
claim. Do you agree with that?
Calm down.
Why would I calm down?
I'm
You're
good.
constantly interrupting me. You're all
I'm
constantly
not
hooting and
interrupt-
hollering over
you
me.
Want,
Why am I
you're
being
asking
told to
me a
calm
question, and now I'm going to answer the question, but I guess you don't want to answer, so
down? Really? Because it sounded like you went dead silent before and let your buddy try and take over for you. But
I
go
can't
ahead.
force him to not talk. What do you want me to do?
No, it sounded
So-
like you went dead silent before and didn't want to answer the question. But go
Why
ahead
are
now.
you
He's
so
trying to
Spit it
answer
out.
you.
angry,
Let him
bro?
answer.
Calm down.
Because you've been constantly interrupting here.
All right,
It's super
dude.
obvious why I'm angry with you. You know why I'm angry
You
with
can
you.
be
Spit
angry.
the fuck out.
That's fine. You can be angry all you want. I'm not angry. at
Yeah,
all.
that doesn't give you an argument. Saying you're mad doesn't give you an argument. Spit it the
I'm-
fuck out. Are you going to
okay.
answer the question or are you going to keep delaying, you little bitch boy?
Damn, bro. Okay, so
Is that to answer the question?
I'm going to answer the question. So
Spit it
I
out.
do agree with you that there could be abundance of something while somebody can also keep it from you.
So
But-
you do agree with that claim earlier.
okay, but the only claim that I'm making is
Okay,
that
cool. So you saying that we can't get something doesn't mean that we live in a world of scarcity.
no, I'm
Because
saying
I
that
can't get something doesn't mean that we live in a world of scarcity. You understand that now?
no, we
So
live in a
all
my
what shows
claim,
that we do live in a world of
Val.
scarcity?
my claim
resource is
was
either
that we live in
scarce
a
or
we live in a world where we don't have an abundance of all resources.
Yeah, but you said we live in a world of scarcity. No, that was your claim.
Yeah, that's what
Scarcity
scarcity is.
Okay,
Right.
so that we don't have an abundance of literally every single resource. You think that would mean that there's a scarcity
Yeah.
of something?
So
we
for
live in an
instance,
entire world of scarcity.
could I do we
okay,
have, do I
that
have
seems
an
like
abundance?
a really watered
Wait,
down claim
for
to
instance,
me. But if
do
that's
I
the
have an
claim that you
abundance
mean,
of
then I also
diamonds?
agree. There's only one of my microphone. It can't be duplicated over indefinitely. And if I really wanted my microphone again and it got broken, I would never be able to get this microphone again. Right? That's
That's on
trivial.
you.
Of course, we live in a world of scarcity. Right? That's obvious now. Right? That's just like a
Val.
non-claim.
Then why were you acting as if we but earlier you said that we don't live in a world of scarcity and now you're going
Because
back on
if
that?
it's an actual claim that means
So now you're
anything,
going back on that
like we
claim now.
have too little of. So yeah, I'm trying to make it clear for you, but you keep interrupting. So no, if it means literally anything of any substance, anything larger than. If I were to really like my particular microphone, and I were to break that microphone, and I could never get it
Gotcha,
again,
so you're going
I'd
back
be
on
living
your
in a
claim,
world of
gotcha.
scarcity. Yeah, if it means anything more than that, no, I'm not going back on that claim. And now that I understand what you're saying,
You said
right,
that we don't-
I
we
still
didn't
agree
live
with
in
my
a-
claim earlier
You said we
that
didn't
we don't
live
live in a world of scarcity. We live in a world of KingSithis scarcity, where you can't have infinite of every item. We live in a
no.
world of actual abundance, where we have most of the things that we need.
Not necessarily.
you
could
don't
I
get it.
go to the store
Not
and buy
necessarily.
could I go
like,
to the store and
logically,
buy
physically.
as many diamonds as I want?
As many diamonds as you want. Do you take diamonds to be a necessity? Again, just because you can't get something
Okay,
you
so
want
that-
doesn't
wait,
mean that you're not
if there-
having a necessity or an abundance.
Hold on. If there isn't an
That's stupid as
you're
fuck,
pro-
the reason I
hold
just
on, you're
pointed out.
proving my point because we don't have an abundance
No.
of diamonds, right? So that's why they cost a
No.
lot.
Do you think that's a necessity? I'm sorry. That's also
not-
not why
It's
they
a
cost a lot.
scarce
They're
object.
They're also
It's a
like
scarce
artificially
resource.
scarce. They're
It's a scarce
artificially
resource.
scarce. It's actually an example of the
Well,
person
okay,
who's
but
preventing
I
you
can
from
make
having
that
the thing.
I can make that argument about gold too. Could I just go into
You
the
can
store
make that
and-
argument about gold too. That sounds like a really good argument.
Could I make it go and buy as much gold as I want?
If it was
at
the
store?
case that a bunch of people were hoarding away a bunch of gold, it wouldn't be a scarce resource, would it?
Yes, it still would
To
be
say
scarce.
something is scary.
Oh, okay. So yeah, in the way that you mean scarcity, I do not mean that. Yeah, that's a crazy definition of scarcity. That's some dumb shit, right? You just agreed that you could have an abundance and a scarcity because, like the example we have earlier,
I'm
we have
moving
an
this. I'll
abundance
let
of a given
taxation
thing,
go.
and we also have a scarcity of it by the fact that they're not allowing you to get the given resource.
So you're agreeing with me? They are scarce. Thank you.
No, you just agreed to a contradiction. Like, I guess if I use words in contradictory ways, where I say if you can have abundance and a scarcity of something, then I do agree with that. Yeah.
You can have,
If I want to use
they're
words in silly ways, then I'll agree with you. But go on. Yeah, taxation is robbery. Spit it out.
Scarcity does not mean there's only a little tiny bit of it. Scarcity means it's finite, that it's not infinite. Within an economic context, that's what people mean when they say scarcity.
So if that's what you meant, that there is like, yeah, again, if there are a set number of things, A equals A, then yeah, of course we all agree to that. That's trivially
Okay,
true.
so you're going back
Clearly
on
not
what you
what
said
was being
earlier.
disputed.
Thank you.
No, I've made it very clear what I was disputing earlier.
Yeah,
you're
but
just too dumb to track.
Okay, guys, earlier, let's just kind of get a check.
You don't understand
He did
the
say
fact
that
you just
scarcity
agreed
doesn't
to.
exist, right, guys?
Yeah, I
He
know in
did
a
say
room
that,
full
right?
of your friends, you're gonna really appeal to all of them to try and get you some
I mean,
backup and some
it
support.
was
But
what
it
you
doesn't
said.
sound like anybody's piping up right now.
It is what you
and
said,
so
though.
I'm gonna just break it down for you.
Well, no,
I gave you the thought experiment earlier of the person who has like an abundance of a resource, let's say like some food, and they prevent you from having that resource via a gun. You agree that there's an abundance of the resource and yet you can't get it. Now,
It's
under your
still scarce.
definition, that would also be scarce. Yeah, it was an abundant resource that is scarce. And now, I don't agree with that. If you think me saying that an abundant resource, that we live in a world of abundance, rather than a world of scarcity, is a dispute towards your claim, then, like, yeah, of course, if we take those words in the way that you seem to take them, they do seem contradictory there. Right, clearly what I'm talking about is something about people's necessities. You're talking about whether you can have an infinite amount of candy bars right now.
Damn,
Yeah.
KingSithis, you got rolled.
No. So okay,
no.
Val.
No. Actually, no.
Yes,
So Val.
All right,
So,
we've
Val-
gone
Okay,
far-
Val, I believe in you. You have to calm
Everybody
down.
who's
You
not
have to calm
you
down.
that
You have
talk
to-
is inherently interrupting, but you have no objection about interrupting when others are talking.
Go ahead, taxation. What the fuck was that?
Was that the point? Was it just meta commentary?
I lagged out. We were earlier talking about the minimum wage thing. The
That's right.
scenario I wanted to give, a very realistic scenario, is you
How about
have
you get a really
small-
realistic study?
Can you stop interrupting him
You have
now?
you have a
'Cause you were
small
so mad
construction
when
company.
you interrupted.
You have a small.
Am I
construction
interrupting too
company
much as
that-
the single
or,
person? in
Now
the
you're
group
interrupting
of
again. Can you
five?
stop interrupting, please?
No.
You
I
have a-
actually, I'm also arguing against these people. It's just like you won't stop talking. I'm like.
Who, me?
You
No,
have
I'm
a
talking
landscaping
about-
company.
talking
Okay.
You have a landscaping company. It's a small landscaping company. Low margins. They don't have great equipment. They don't have a good reputation. Small landscaping company. They hire a bunch of Mexicans. All right. They pay low. They make low, and they still have small margins. When you raise the minimum wage, you put that company out of business. What is the fucking noise?
What is that
Holy
noise?
shit! Mute yourself. Listen to popcorn.
Oh, I'm marking down the things that you're saying. I'm sorry. Do you not want me to
Okay,
take down the
then
things that you're saying?
You can.
Mute yourself.
Yeah, you
You
can
can
mute
mute
yourself
my
while you're doing
Whoa,
that.
Whoa, okay.
I'm
Calm the fuck down, okay? I'm trying to get to this point. Y'all are getting super upset. over some
It
goddamn
sounds like you're
keyboard.
using a typewriter. That's what it sounds like, bro.
My dude, that's how
You're like
fucking
sitting
keyboards
with
that aren't
fucking
shit sound.
bubble
I'm sorry that I didn't borrow one from my local library, okay?
Oh,
But-
sorry.
Like, that's
Oh,
what that shit
sorry.
sounds like now.
Okay.
Sounded
That's what the big keyboards sound like,
Okay,
okay?
bro.
That's whenever you have
We
a
got you, bro.
big ass keyboard.
It sounded like firecrackers.
It sounded
Anyway,
like a typewriter.
you or a fucking sitting there with bubble wrap. So
No, but get back to the point, the really real point that you were making.
you have got a low margin fucking landscaping company, old equipment, no reputation or shitty reputation from, some asshole left them some bad reviews, whatever, right? Low margin, low wages. And if you raise the minimum wage, at least if you raise it enough, okay, that company now is out of business. We agree on that.
Yeah, I
They're
agree if you
like-
infinitely raise the minimum wage,
Now-
they'll go out of business, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Those people, you're interrupting. Those workers.
Yeah, you asked a question. You asked right, and so I
The
responded to
reason
your
that
question.
those workers, I didn't finish. Those workers.
No, you asked the. I'm sorry.
Wow, please let him finish
Yeah.
his statement.
You should just mute him when it's anyone except his turn. Anyway, those workers have demonstrated by principle of revealed preference that they consider this job in this company to be the best option available to them. And if that were not the case, they would be doing something else, not this. People generally do what they consider their best option within their present circumstance. So by putting that company out of business, by banning those jobs, what?
You got a double cheese on ketchup?
Well, no, they're not being banned, right? It's just the case that they can't afford to pay out any more. Then, yeah, of course, they won't be able to make that margin.
Okay. Right, but
And those people get
but
fired.
we've already arrived at the premise.
Yeah,
that
I'm saying, can you show that it outweighs the economic growth that would happen?
It outweighs what?
Any economic growth that would happen. Right, I'm asking you to show me anything empirically to back up this really cool story that you have, but you keep giving me the really cool story and saying it's like prima facie justified. I'd like take it as like before things. Before I even talk to you, I feel like it's justified.
We determine it a priori.
Empiricism
Okay,
is.
I
very-
understand that you feel like you determine it a priori, but that's like almost question begging. You understand what that would be like question begging, right?
Empiricism is very flawed.
No, you don't
because-
understand that. Okay, pipe the fuck down, retard.
Can you let him answer the question, please?
Wait, you just talked to me. What are you talking
Hold
about?
on, but
I
now
was
you're
engaging with you,
Hold on.
and now you want to bitch down. It's okay. Just keep on mute next time.
It's like impossible to talk to this guy.
KingSithis, you're kind of stupid.
How am I stupid? What the fuck did I do?
You're kind of getting rhetorically demolished right now.
Well, the
I mean-
thing that you keep doing is like
What am I
backstabbing.
doing? How am I getting demolished?
Like cowering away from every single claim that you make.
How am I?
What claim did he have? I didn't hear him cower away from any claim.
What claim did I cower away from?
I felt like everybody else just heard him go dead silent when I was talking to him earlier, but like maybe I'm mistaken though.
Yeah, because you were speaking. But
Oh,
I-
no, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to
No,
interrupt
no,
you.
it was whenever you were being waited on to respond, but you know, maybe I was just here. Maybe that was just my lag, you know,
And
it
what-
wasn't the lag
okay, so
between your
you said
fucking
that
neurons.
you said that I went back on something that I said, and then when we questioned you on it, now you're saying, oh, but you don't have anything that I said that I went.
I
back
didn't
on.
stutter at all there. I don't know why you're
You
trying to
didn't.
act like I
You did
stuttered.
not.
You're a really
say
bad
any-
gaslighter.
You did not say anything.
You're
that I
just
went
lying
back
in
on.
front of everybody. You just did it right now.
You literally lied too. You just said I went back on my claims, and then
How did I
when we
lie?
asked you, because we asked you
Where
what
did
I went
lie?
back on.
What
We
did I
asked
say that's
you-
false?
We asked you what I went back on, and you had nothing to say to that. You did not have
Every
anything.
single, give me
Yeah,
a
name me
single
one
claim in
claim.
this conversation. Yeah, sure. The
Yeah,
abundance
the only
claim.
claim.
The abundance claim.
What
You said that I was
abundance
wrong
claim?
for saying we live in a world of abundance. You said, actually, no, we live in a world of both abundance and scarcity after I talked to you. You backed the fuck down.
Those are not contradictory.
That's not.
Yeah, now he
contradictory.
believes that. That's right. He backed the fuck down.
And
I'm
you
glad everybody
said-
agrees with me
Hold
now.
on, and you said in the beginning of this conversation that you didn't believe scarcity was a thing. So and
Not,
you went back on that.
not in the sense that. No, I don't use it in the sense that you're using.
Okay, so you went back on that. So
I don't use it in the sense that you're using it.
yeah, so you did.
No, I didn't go back on anything.
You did.
No, I didn't go back on anything. But I'm
So
glad
you-
that you agree that you went back on something.
I didn't go
You made
back
it
on
very clear that-
anything.
No,
I
you just made
literally
it very
said-
clear that you agree with that now.
No, I don't.
Wait, but you acted like I was disagreeing with you for saying we live in a world of abundance. Or now you're saying that
I
those things
said-
are contradictory?
I said just because we live.
I
in a
wasn't
wor-
disputing your view?
I said just because we live in a world of abundance does not mean that we don't live in a world of scarcity.
You said that after you
Yeah,
had to
'cause I'm-
take a crazy reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
because I'm
remember.
explaining.
I
what
remember.
I, believe.
I recall the conversation. I'm
Bro,
glad you
are
recall
crazy, bro.
backstepping.
Why are you so fucking crazy?
I don't feel like I'm crazy right now. Listen, I'm saying that if you feel like you've never backstepped anything before in this conversation, I think that's fine. I think it was super obvious to everybody else, though, that you heard me say that we live in a
I
world
agree.
of abundance,
He
and you
is
did not
crazy.
agree with that. You did not agree with that, and as I was disputing that, I
I'm
gave you a
crazy?
very
What have I
clear
said that's
reductio.
crazy? The
clear
only
reductio
claim that I'm
was-
making is I
just
don't
a
believe that
second,
minimum wage
just
is
a
good.
second, sir. Just
Minimum
a
wage
second,
bad.
Sir. Just a second, sir. Just
That's
a
my
second,
claim.
sir. Yeah, just a second, sir. Yeah. So what I remember is you getting a very clear reductio that actually, if somebody were to take away, they were to force you to not have a large quantity of a resource, that we'd also have an abundance and a scarcity of the exact same resource.
Val, dude, can you stop yelling? Dude.
Why? Why is the tone policing more important than the arguments I'm making?
Unbelievable.
Because it's annoying.
Yeah, it is kind
Because
of
it's annoying. I don't care if the arguments I make annoy you.
No, it's not
It's not the argument. It's the tone. It's the fact
Yeah,
that
I
you're
think you
yelling.
constantly interrupting me and constantly insulting me. I think that's a little bit poor tone as well. That's some poor
I'm not
rhetoric.
insulting
That's
you.
a little bit
How
nasty.
did I
I'm
insult
sorry.
you?
I don't care that if my voice. I don't care if my voice getting
Take
raised
your
reminds you
meds.
of your father. I'm
Take your
sorry.
meds. Take your
I'm
meds.
sorry
Take your
if it's
meds.
not a
Take
counter
your meds.
argument. We're not
Take
on
your meds.
Xbox
Take your
Live.
meds.
I'm
Take your
sorry. You
meds.
can't just say you're mad over and over and over again and expect it to sound like it's a reason.
And I've heard call anyone names, insult people, getting all disrespectful towards people.
Listen, you might not have in particular. I'll grant that for you, taxation. I know other people have. Okay, like you're not just gonna deny.
You're
that.
salty, bro.
Take your
I
meds,
didn't hear
dude.
it. Up in
Listen, I
here.
know what I'm salty about. My nuts are on your face right now. The only thing you have to say in response to me is you're mad, bro, over and
Based
over
on
and
your
over
tone,
again.
based on your tone, you lost the argument. By the way, you lost the debate, so you lose. Sorry, bro. You can laugh. You can laugh, but
Bro, that's the tone patrol.
you lost.
Is the town
soft
patrol? Just yeah.
Back in my day.
All right, can taxation and Val have their conversation? All right.
It sort of
Yeah,
sounds
so
like
is there any?
He doesn't want to have the conversation, bro.
Huh?
All right,
I don't want to have the conversation. Sounds like I just got kicked.
yeah, because you were being annoying.
Oh, it sounds like you don't
want
want
to have the
conversation
conversation or no? Or,
No, it sounds like you don't want to have the conversation.
All right.
It seems like you kicked me out of the voice chat.
we wanted to have a respectful
I'm not gonna do
conversation.
the weird gaslighting thing where you try and do the thing with me.
All right. So, anyone want to talk
Damn,
about
King
why
Sithis,
minimum
you
wage
you
bad?
took those reductios like back shots. You
Well,
absolutely got demolished. That was so embarrassing, King
Yeah, I
Sithis.
know. I got so demolished by that guy.
Femby, what determines a wage?
And that's an example of the
He
left.
He left.
Transsexual left.
Nobody wants to have that conversation with me, bro.
Yeah, I'm kind of over. I was kind of over that guy. I'm not gonna lie.
I kind of wanted to talk to whatever their name was because that person
Val?
just
I don't think there
Yeah,
was.
I wish
The one
I-
who sounded like are you referencing the one who was shouting, sounding like a narcissist on cocaine?
yeah. I mean, I could just ask them some questions and leave them to like shout, you know, and then like that would be like
I was
think that'd be the
kind of
perfect
getting tired of it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the point you were making is valid in that the sum of what is produced is insufficient to satisfy everybody's wants. If you just would have said that, that's like the economic problem, which is an indisputable.
Yeah, there's not enough
claim.
to. There's not enough
yeah.
to
sum of what is
satisfy
produced.
everything. What? There's not enough
Right.
in this world to
No,
satisfy everyone's wants. Yeah.
There's not
So
enough.
the example she gave of someone blocking off
Oh my God.
economic goods from other people does not deny scarcity, it doesn't deny that that there is that actually shows that there is scarcity, right? Because
Okay, I'm the only one who's like actually I'm still here. I'm still arguing getting like minimum wage bad. I'm still here. Like I.
Okay, if you want to make your argument, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it is undeniably the case that the sum of all that is produced cannot satisfy everyone's wants, because that's literally impossible, because wants are theoretically infinite. I could
Yes,
want to
exactly.
control the universe.
Sure.
But like there is certainly enough production to satisfy everyone's needs. And by needs I mean like food, shelter,
Survival.
water, Maslow's
Why-
hierarchy. survival,
why is there
Maslow's
enough?
hierarchy. Why is there enough? Because we have enough food to feed everyone.
yeah,
but how
but
do we
like
get it?
why is it that we can produce that much food?
Does it fall
Why
from the
is it we
sky?
produce so much food? Because we
Yeah.
grow it.
I understand, but like
And
once
farm
upon
it?
a time, almost everybody and almost all the working population worked in agriculture. But now,
Yeah.
like in the United States, for example, only less than 2% of the working population is in agriculture directly.
Because we have
So-
large factory farms with like advanced tech and like automated like big tractors
Yeah, it's
and
much more efficient.
harvesting equipment and like seeders and like all kinds of like tech that allows large parts of the
More crops with less
process
labor.
to be automated. That-
Automation, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so in the United, so for example, in the United States, our capital stock per person is very high.
Who did
So like
Arthas date
we have
before
these
he
like
became
giant
the Lich King?
agricultural machines that
Yeah.
massively increase the productivity of labor, and we have a long structure of production. So we have large specialization, and so it makes it so that the typical farm worker can produce so much stuff that he could feed thousands and thousands of people, right, in a working or whatever it is. I don't know exactly what it is, but just enormous increases in productivity, right? Essentially, what's the difference between a rich country and a poor country is going to be the capital stock per person, and the biggest determiner of a wage or of the marginal product of labor is capital, right? So the more capital, you increase the product of labor. So are you following everything so far?
Yeah, I'm following everything so far.
Cool. So if you want to raise wages, you need to increase capital per person, right?
Yes.
And
the problem is that we live in a developed country, right? Which means that we have enough capital to pay everyone $15 an hour.
We don't, though.
What do you mean? There is not a single job in this country that cannot. Well, okay, there probably are, but the overwhelming majority of like necessary jobs in this country can run a profit of $15 an hour because we have a large amount of capital.
Can I jump?
Sure,
Can I make a small point? Is that okay?
Okay.
If that was true, then why are there so many companies offloading their labor to other countries that pay less?
Because they're greedy and they can make more money if they go to countries that are and also.
Well, the reason why is because they can't afford to pay every one of their employees $15 an hour. So to undercut the minimum wage, they just hire someone from another country who does.
Well, they can afford to do that. It's just that they would rather not. Like
JR,
regulation forces companies to do certain things.
JR, if that was true,
to do other things.
So this is a mathematical claim. This isn't like what you feel or like, right? So like the marginal value product of labor is X, okay, for like certain companies. So like you could go look at companies that have workers that make, say, like less than $15 an hour, right? And some of them don't make profits. So if it was true that what you were saying, right, that any company has enough capital goods per person to pay more than $15 an hour, it would be basically impossible it would be mathematically impossible for a company to make losses on labor when they pay less than $15 an hour.
Okay.
That's a mathematical fact.
It's possible to make losses on labor. It's pretty fucking easy not to. All right. It's like Of course, it's possible to run a business that badly, but
no. Like low skill workers. Like I have a hotel, right? Like we're talking about low skill workers, like people who are just getting in the workforce that don't have a lot of skills, right? And their productivity is very low. Some of these workers. The marginal. Can you repeat yourself, Tax? The marginal product of their labor.
Your microphone is hot micing a little bit.
The marginal product of their labor doesn't justify a wage in excess of $15 an hour. If a capitalist entrepreneur hires them, then they make a loss mathematically. So if that weren't true, then any business that pays less than $15 for the wages per hour would make would always make profits, like huge profits. And of course, like if they were making huge profits, then other firms would join the industry and bid up those wages to equilibrium. So they would rise and they would go above $15 an hour. The very fact that you don't see that it should tell you that the reason why that's not the case is because the marginal value product of labor is not high enough.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't get all of that.
So basically, these firms are hiring workers that produce, so like whenever I say marginal value product, I mean the revenue attributable to a unit of labor, right? So like say you have a person in a widget factory.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, yeah, right. So if I have someone in a widget factory, they produce 20 widgets per hour attributable to them, right? Holding other inputs constant.
Who's the guy
attributable to that input added of labor, and it's 20 widgets, and each widget is worth $20.
I have my friend hold him. He's talking right now.
2 times 20 is $40, right? That's the marginal revenue product. So if the marginal if the firm or the capitalist entrepreneur pays more than marginal revenue product, let's say $41 in this circumstance,
Right now they're having a
they make
conversation
loss on
about the
labor,
minimum wage.
on the profit and loss statement. So the labor is
Yeah.
overcapitalized. It's overpriced, right? So if so like given an example, you can make it say this person produces 7 widgets per hour. That's $14, right?
It's convenient then that the what happened? Sorry. It's convenient then that the minimum wage in the U.S. is $8 and not $41. It is clear that the this person's what did you call it?
Marginal revenue product.
Marginal revenue product is higher than the minimum wage, and I think it is very abnormal for like a job to have a lower margin revenue product than the minimum wage. Like a potential
You say
job.
yeah. You say it's easy, but not always, right? Like some people don't like so let me tell you something. Like this is like a really scary reality, okay? So like 15% of the population has an IQ less than 85, right? These people can't do basic tasks. Like they struggle to do very basic 15% of the population. That's actually a lot of people.
Population struggle to do basic tasks. I would need a verification on that.
Yeah, like people.
I have more faith in humanity than you, I guess.
People with an IQ less than 85 struggle to do tasks that people with IQs over at or above average easily do, right? So like these people can only work low skill jobs, generally speaking. Like so like basically they're handicapped, their marginal product is handicapped because of their lack of intelligence. All right, it's just a fact. So like this is especially true today. Like obviously more and more jobs are about brains and less about bronze. So people that have the cognitive capacity to do those harder or more mind intensive jobs make a lot more, right? Their marginal revenue product is much higher. But anyway, there's a large part of the population that struggles to do basic work, right? Their marginal revenue product is just very low. It's just the reality. But of course, they have some value they could provide. Like they could sweep floors or do, they could clean kitchens, whatever it is. They could produce their marginal revenue product isn't zero generally. So they could get jobs, but it's not certain that their marginal revenue product is above $8 an hour. It's not. That's not certain.
If I would contest that it's 15%, but there is a number of people.
You can look it up.
That you can't hear me typing, but I am typing, unlike that other person.
Yeah, that guy had like a typewriter, bro.
My keyboard is also very loud. I just have push to talk.
Yeah,
that was actually funny. I was like,
he was like, I was like, what the hell? That other guy was too unbearable to talk to. Too much.
Yeah, JR is at least like you could talk to him. But yeah, so 15% of the population has an IQ of 85
well, the thing
or
is,
less.
my basic argument fundamentally, like you don't need to look up anything for my basic argument. For why the minimum wage will inevitably lead to at least either higher rates of unemployment or higher prices, right?
Well,
and the reason why that is,
okay.
Huh?
Sorry. So the problem with this argument is that you're essentially saying that.
Who are you responding to, by the way, before you say
I think he's responding to you.
You're essentially saying that disabled people who can't work, the minimum wage hurts disabled people who can't work because they can't work a job that has a very low marginal.
Yeah, marginal revenue product.
Marginal
whose labor is very low. Marginalized.
There's a reason then. Well, first of all, should these people work, they can't make enough money to live anyway. And second,
would you rather
we have disability pensions?
Would you rather them make $5 an hour or zero?
I would rather they get a disability pension.
I understand that, but like if they could work, like they're physically able to work, and they have a very low productivity, so they make very low money, but they can make some money, right? Do you think it's better if this person doesn't work?
The problem is that this is discounting the fact that the vast majority of the population does have a productivity value of over $20. And
Yes, that's why less than 1% of the population makes the minimum wage
what?
in the United States, the federal minimum wage.
It's a very most businesses don't pay the minimum wage.
I'm sure it's
Even
yeah,
McDonald's
the
doesn't
minimum
even pay
wage is-
minimum wage.
yeah, because
Right,
the
because
minimum wage
the
is
marginal
very low.
product of labor
And,
justifies a higher wage.
Well, can I make my
So
argument?
like, just let me say this, right?
Sure.
So
No, you can-
and then I'll be quick. So like, the minimum wage doesn't change the capital per person. Okay, the only way to sustainably raise wages over time is by increasing capital per person, right? This is even true for low skill workers. So everybody benefits from more capital goods. Okay, in the long run, especially. Whenever you raise the minimum wage and it's a binding price floor, you cause unemployment for workers that have a marginal revenue product less than the minimum wage. Okay, it's just the reality. Mathematically, any entrepreneur that hires them is going to make a loss. So that would be an a priori truth. It's also going to make total product less, which is basically just saying like the goods and services that are produced in the economy are few. There's fewer of them because factors are prevented from being allocated to their most productive uses, and there's people who aren't producing who could be producing, right, in a free market without a minimum wage. So you basically make it illegal for people that have a marginal revenue product less than minimum wage to get jobs. Like it's very easy for us to sit here and say like, oh, we want people to have higher wages, right? The only way to sustainably do that over time is by increasing the marginal product of labor. And the only way to increase the marginal product of labor over time is by increasing the amount of capital per person. Okay. And the general price level, of course, would not rise with the minimum wage because people would spend more on whatever it is that the labor is producing, and they'd spend less on other things if they were to keep buying that. If they stop buying it, then they would then that already settles it. If the business could raise the price, they just would have done it before the minimum wage, generally speaking. But anyway, go ahead, King.
So basically the argument that I make is just fundamentally like, if let's say we raise the minimum wage to say like $15 an hour, do you think every business is going to be able to afford to pay every one of its employees $15 an hour? JR?
Sorry. Oh my god.
You good? You all right?
Yeah. So the problem is that there is a much higher number of people who make... There is a much higher number of people whose, what's the word? I keep forgetting that fucking word. Marginal
revenue product.
Marginal revenue product. Okay, I need to write that down.
Yeah, it's a good economic concept. By the way, that's the equilibrium price of labor. So like, just so you know, whenever I say marginal revenue product, I don't mean that every worker earns their marginal revenue product. I just mean there's a tendency in the economy for labor to be paid its marginal revenue product. Okay, just like make that clear. So like, don't expect every worker to make their marginal revenue product, right? It's not how it's gonna work.
No. Yeah, okay. It's just that there are a large number. The overwhelming majority of people are paid significantly less than the marginal revenue product in this economy. Like,
if that were true, then businesses would make huge profits. So like,
they do
there would
make
be
huge
like
profits.
No, I'm saying like
they're huge profits.
No, like I'm saying like their profit margins would be above, like significantly above the interest rate. So like, can you show me like what's the average? The average corporate profit margin is 7.4%, right? So like, it's not that can't be true. That labor is systematically underpriced. Right? If that were true, then a bunch of entrepreneurs could hire labor right now and they'd make huge profits on the labor. Like all of us could go into business and get super rich by underpaying for labor, right? The product would be so much more.
Well, the problem is that, well, first of all, businesses have low profit margins because, well, for a number of things, what is it called? Primary goods, or like the initial goods that are
Primary production, like the steel, yeah.
Yeah, well, the cost of the ratio of primary production to sold product is probably the greatest indicator of profit margin, right?
Hey, taxation.
Labor.
Your microphone is hot
Taxation
micing
as
a little
well.
bit.
Oh wait,
you
no,
said that
sorry.
you said that the ratio of I'm sorry, I didn't get your claim.
The main reason why profit margins are low is because the profit margin is mostly related to the cost of primary production.
But costs are determined. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, the reason the reason why that profit margins are low is because of competition, right? So like, basically, if there was like huge profit margins for business, like if they could offer ginormous profit margins, then I can earn a return on capital in excess. So a bunch of capitalists would shift their capital towards those investments, right? So like it wouldn't last for a long time in a free market. Regardless of like what primary production, so like primary production, it would be the same thing. If there's an undercapitalization or like underpricing of factors like land, labor, and capital goods for primary production, then a bunch of entrepreneurs would step in to produce that, and they would make profits, and they would bid up the factors to equilibrium. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. So like, there's a general tendency for every firm to have the same return on capital to their owners, right? It never gets there because we never get into the ERE or like to equilibrium, right? In equilibrium, every firm earns the same return on capital, but we're not in equilibrium. So, anyway, the point is basically, if there was like firms that were earning like excess returns to their competitors, then capitalist entrepreneurs would just start buying stock in those companies and competing with them, right? And so like the returns would go back down as entrepreneurs shift their capitalists shift their funds over to those investments. So like the wages have a tendency to be paid their productivity, right? What you're talking about could not happen like for any systematic period of time, unless there's like huge distortions keeping that from being the case, like gigantic distortions preventing entrepreneurs or capitalist entrepreneurs.
I'm not like a fancy econ guy. I don't understand how like if a company makes more money, like the market will just make them not make more money. That doesn't make much.
Okay, let me explain it to you very simply. Okay, so like company A is making more money than company B, right? If I buy company A stock, I earn a higher return, okay, than company B. So company B, the shareholders of company B are going to sell their stock. So because like the factors, like the stock is overpriced, right? And they shift their funds over to company A. Whenever they do this, what happens to company's A stock whenever people are buying it?
What happens to company A stock?
So people are selling, capitalists are selling company B's price, right? Or B stock. They're selling that stock. So what happens to the price of that stock when people sell?
It goes up.
it would go down, right? Because more is coming onto the market, people sell. All right, there's less of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they buy company A stock, right? So like what happens when a bunch of people buy something? All else equal.
Gets
More demand.
expensive.
Yes, it gets more expensive. So as more people buy that stock, the return to investors would continue to go down, okay? Because they're paying a higher price for the future money that the business generates, right? So
Not
if it were
already
true,
own the stock.
yes, but people are selling the stock of other companies and shifting it to the higher return companies, right? So if you already own the stock, great. You forecasted something better than your peers, right? The market was mispricing something that you priced more accurately, right? So you earn profits for that. But but as market participants see that that you made the correct decision, right? They can earn a higher return. Basically, they can earn a higher return on their money. Company A offers a return of 10%. Company B offers a return of 5%. They're going to sell Company B and buy Company A, right? And in the process of them doing that, when they sell Company B's stock, the return goes up for Company B, and when they buy Company A stock, the return goes down for Company A. So because what now new capitalists who buy that stock are paying a higher price for the same stock, so the return goes down, right? So like if a business was making super high profits, then this is another thing, then other businesses would come in to compete with them, right? That because like if I were making an 80% profit margin and my shareholders were earning 50% returns on capital, like if I could earn 50% returns, I am going to buy that stock. I'll sell my house, I'll sell my car, right? And buy the stock. That would push the return down for other investors. All right. So basically what you need to know is the more you pay for something, the lower your return is, like for an investment, right? So through investor self-interest, or through, like profit motivated reasons, and the market has a way of making it so that investments that have higher returns end up getting the regular return rate, like normal profits and normal returns on capital, right? Because nobody is going to accept a lower return if they could earn a higher return, basically. All right, are you following what I'm saying?
It just... So wait... If... This feels like a very,
I think you stumped him.
I think, like... I'm not like an economist. I don't... Like, it's very difficult for me to, like, It's very difficult for me to, like, say, people, It's very...
You okay?
What was that? I'm sorry, it's just, like...
I think he stumped you a bit.
By the way,
Yeah,
look, I've been
I guess anarcho-capitalism wins. I guess,
look, I've been kind of doing a delivery and not paying that much attention for the last few minutes, but I understand that Holden has a tendency to kind of use a lot of specialty terms or, like economic nerd terms and use them in quick sequence with each other, and it can be confusing, even for me sometimes, and I'm actually pretty well read.
I feel like the only, like, if you're, like, just a rhetoric guy, like, the best like, there's not really a rebuttal to that other than, like, holy yak, or, like, I like your funny words, Magic Man.
He's not using rhetoric. There's some rhyme to his reason. What I'm saying, what we're saying is that he uses a lot of economic terms that not most people aren't really used to. So it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying sometimes.
We should do our very best to just speak in the most layman's terms we can, just plain English that everybody can easily follow. And that's not a statement, by the way, on anybody's intelligence. People have different interests.
Not everyone gets a degree in economics. Actually, I don't even know if fucking Holden got a degree in economics. He might just be like
We don't.
freakishly
Working on
interested
it.
in it.
We don't.
He's working.
I'm in school right now for economics, but my goal wasn't to confuse you, right? It was basically me just saying that.
The student guy, like the other two aren't, and I think that they're a lot more approachable because they do speak in layman's terms. So I don't know, maybe higher education as that to an MF.
Well, basically, I'm sorry that like my goal like sincerely is not to try and like confuse you. But like, but I guess like, what if I could say it in like the simplest way possible? What I was saying is like when people sell stock, like when investors sell stock, the
He's gonna
price
go
goes
back into
down.
it.
The price goes down. Okay, when people sell more of said thing, the price goes down. All right, all else equal. And whenever now they have funds for other things, right? So now company B's stock went down because investors sold. Now they're using these funds to go to a higher return investment, right? So they're buying company A stock. Company A is earning higher profits and higher returns. So they buy company A stock. When they buy company A stock, the price goes up because all else equal, when people buy more, the price goes up at any given price, right?
Yes. Okay.
So
So company A stock goes up, company B stock goes down. Company A is the one with a high
Right.
profit margin. Company B is the one with the lower profit margin. How does
Right.
company A's profit margin decrease more because their company is more valuable?
So the profit margin will decrease because whenever you have profit margins that basically high profit margins, like super high profit margins, that means that that the factors of production, so land, labor, and capital goods, so think like, humans and machines and tools and land, right? Like the factors that they use for production, they're underpriced relative to their marginal revenue product or the revenue that they actually generate, right? Are you following so far? So
Yeah, I'm
like
following.
those factors are underpriced relative to the rent that they generate or the income they generate for the owner or the capitalist, right? So so what happens is when those firms earn profits, other firms come in to buy those factors. They'll start buying land, labor, and capital goods to produce that same product, right? So when they do this, the price of those factors goes up because more people are buying, right? So they basically stop buying some factors and buy these factors, right? So they switch to a superior investment in these factors of production, right? When they do this, the price rises for these factors, the profit margin goes down because the factors become more expensive as people buy them. Because all else equal, when people buy more, the price goes up, right? For these factors. So essentially, the easy way of saying it is that there's more competition. Whenever a firm has high profits, other firms come in to compete those profits away. Did you follow that?
Yeah.
Can I
Cool.
explain?
So,
Can I make an explanation?
Sure.
So basically, how this all works I'm gonna put this in layman terms as I can, right? When you force a business to pay more, not every single business is going to be able to afford this arbitrary wage that the state has set. So in order to make up for that lost money, they fire people, raise the prices of their goods and services, or sometimes they go out of business, right? So one leads to higher prices when they raise the prices, and the other two, which is them closing down or firing people or just not hiring new people, that leads to higher rates of unemployment. And that's it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So does it make sense now that like if there was if there like so say for example we lived in a world where everybody was not getting paid their marginal revenue product, right? Like there was a systematic underpricing of labor. Like labor was priced way below the revenue it generated for the owners, right? Or for the capitalists. Shouldn't say owners because you can't really own labor. If that were true, then those businesses were.
Because I'm just looking down like the I'm just looking down the I'm looking down like the Google page, like most of these like studies don't like find negligible impact on the total labor market. I don't know if like.
Well, here's the problem, right?
Are, like fake and Jewish or whatever, but like I don't know, man.
Can I jump on this? So here's the problem with these studies, right? Here's the difference between a normal scientific study and an economic study, right? So let's take like medication, for example, right?
Okay.
When you test for a medication, you can test you get a bunch of people, you give them the medication, you get people who don't have it and who don't take the medication, and you sort of compare what it does to those people and what it does to people who don't have it, right? Who haven't not taken it. And you compare it to people who have not taken it, and then you can see the effects, like the general effects of that medication across the board. The problem is you can't really do that with economics. So you can get repeatable studies, and you could test how it would have been had you not taken that medication on people who did not take the medication. But with like economic studies, you can't test how something would have been had it not been put in place. So let's say
yes, because the economics is the study of like trade of like the holistically the entire economy, and like there are too many external factors. There was no way to make a control group.
Yeah, so I could just easily say like, oh well, you know, how do you know that the minimum wage wouldn't have been, if the minimum wage wasn't raised, that the unemployment rate would have been even higher? I mean, lower, right? How do you know that? The reason why you can't know that is because you can't study how it would have been had you not put the policy in place. All you can really do, all you can really do is compare it to like other cities, but the problem with that, right, is that you're testing two different cities with two different people, different businesses, they're like completely different situations. So it's like it's not even close. It's impossible.
Like the problem, the thing is though, if you do something, you can like do something, and if it has positive consequences, then it was a good thing that you did. But you can do something and it has negative consequences, and then you know, oh, doing that was bad. You might not be able to control for every variable, but you can get an idea of what works and what doesn't simply by the outcomes of these different policies.
Yeah, but the problem is there could be so many things that could be affecting that study that you don't know. So for instance, let's say when they raise the minimum wage, they also lower taxes, right? That could be making it seem like the minimum wage wasn't really affecting the job market, right? It could make it seem like it isn't. But the problem is there are other things that are affecting that, but that you can't account for the study. Let's say there's a lot of the businesses in that area have a bunch of extra capital reserves, and they like their people, and they want to hold on to them. What if they, instead of not firing people, maybe they just decide to raise the prices of their goods? What if maybe instead of firing people, they decided to just not hire any new people? You know what I'm saying? Like, there are so many things that you can't account for in a study that, you know, could be affecting those final numbers.
No. Yeah. So like, why do you know any better?
Well, I'm not saying I know any better. What we're doing is we are looking at the fact that we live in a world of scarcity, the fact that businesses want to make more money than what they spend, And we look at the consequences of adding costs to businesses and the effects that happen to that. You don't need to look at a study to know that when you raise the prices of a minimum wage, that adds a cost to a business. They have to make up for that cost. And the way they generally do so is by firing people, not hiring new people, or raising the prices of the goods and services. That then leads to minimum wage hikes, or, not minimum wage, but higher rates of unemployment, as well as, higher prices for goods and services.
There is another effect that nobody has brought up so far of raising the minimum wage, and that is the concentration of market. Because large corporations have a much easier time affording minimum wage hikes. It doesn't mean that they can withstand just any level of minimum. Raise the minimum wage to 25. Walmart and Amazon likely be out of
cutting out periodically. I
can make the argument. So basically, I know the argument that he's making. Large corporations benefit from minimum wage hikes because they have the excess capital in order to pay each one of their employees whatever the minimum wage is rise to. The problem is not every business, most of the businesses that can't pay them are smaller businesses. So when they raise the minimum wage, they just raise the prices a little bit, or maybe, cut down on the profit a little bit. But in the long run, they make more money because now all their competitors are basically kicked out of the market. And
not all their competitors.
Well,
That's
a lot of their competitors, or more competitors than it would otherwise have been had the policy not been in place, right?
The effective rate, in other words, an effect in Britain.
What?
So the largest corporations hold a much larger market share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well.
And paradoxically, by the way, this has effect of cutting down, say now. That is to say,
I'm
if
really
you have a
sorry,
smaller number of players...
You keep cutting out, at important words, and, I
can make the argument. Basically, the businesses who are larger, they are able to, because they have more money in reserves, and they have more people that buy the product, they can eat up the higher wages a lot more easier than smaller businesses. And if the smaller businesses are not able to keep up, they'll go out of business or have to fire people, which then basically benefits just those large businesses, and basically makes it hard for the smaller businesses to compete with them.
So, what?
Which has an effect of cutting down on the number of people trying to hire, the number of businesses trying to hire workers. Which
bargaining
power of workers.
So yeah, then all the people who are going to be working are only going to work for these large mega corporations, as opposed to say a.
I just don't understand. I'm not advocating for the minimum should be no taxation. He died.
I'm still here. Don't worry.
No, the problem is though, I don't understand what's so we're not talking about raising the cost of labor to a point at which it is, but we're talking about artificially raising the cost of labor to a point where all full-time employees can afford to live. I don't understand the
Yeah, but the problem is when you do that, the people who that don't have the productivity to make to justify that pay are now gonna get fired.
If you can't afford to pay your employees enough to live, I don't know, tough shit. I don't
Yeah, but then every single person that works at that business is now fired, and now there's less jobs.
Except there's a floor to the amount of joblessness that can occur from the price of labor being increased, because labor is still necessary for society to function.
Yeah, like I
Like-
said,
Yeah,
that's
I think
that's
a-
assuming that every single business will be able to afford the minimum wage hike. This is what you're assuming.
Well, I believe that the vast majority of businesses should be able to afford enough money for
But
the
what about the businesses
people-
that can't?
If they can't
Tough luck?
afford to pay their employees to live, yeah, tough luck.
Well then,
I don't
okay,
think-
so
JR.
all of those businesses, all of the employees in that business, all of the products that would have been created from that businesses are now gone. So that leads to higher prices and more unemployment.
Well, again, as I said, there's a well, first of all, there's a flaw to it, and first of all, I don't. When you say we live in a society of scarcity, I
A
don't
world of
believe that our
scarcity.
society is a world of scarcity. Sure, I don't believe that the world is literally that scarce that like it is such a detriment to the economy that you're not allowed to pay everyone not enough to live. Like that's not.
Well, how much
JR.
money to live, how much money it takes to live, that varies between each person. And when you put a minimum wage, you're just basically saying, I think that
Well,
nobody should be
yeah,
allowed to pay people any less than this amount. But then
Well,
if
it
the
takes
person,
a lot to live. I agree. It takes more to live in some
again, if you care about poor people, right? Raising the minimum wage harms them because it increases unemployment and it makes it harder for them to
Does
find
it
a job.
increase unemployment though?
It
Because,
does.
Like, is there like? Could you give me an example of a minimum wage being introduced and it increasing unemployment?
Okay, so
'Cause, like,
for instance, if you're a business owner, right, and the
Yeah.
minimum wage has been increased, and
No,
you
I
can't,
mean like a
and
real
you cannot.
world example because the real
This
world
is a real
more
world. This happens in the
complicated.
real world.
Well, I know it happens in the real. Well,
This isn't a hypothetical. This happens in the real world. So
Well,
let's say you're a business owner.
okay,
You
fine,
can't
go
afford to
ahead.
pay every one of your employees $15 an hour. What are you gonna do?
What am I gonna do? I can't. Why can't I afford to pay them $15 an hour?
Your business
Am I
doesn't
not-
make enough money.
Well. Okay.
I mean, that does happen in the real world, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay,
of
so
course.
now what?
You will have to lay off some employees.
Okay, that's
like,
higher rates of unemployment, or what else?
well, again, like this. What business? The vast majority of pushback against the minimum wage, like the vast majority of companies, the negative impact on companies by the minimum wage, isn't that they can't afford to pay them enough money. It means that their margins slightly reduce because they have to pay them more money.
Yeah, so all the big people in that business
And
who
it's slight
would have been
and
working, who
slightly
would have had a
reduced
job,
margins.
now no longer have a job because you don't like that they got paid less than this arbitrary amount.
Well, it's not an arbitrary amount. Like, it's the amount of money that, like, you need to live. I mean, like, we're not talking about an $100
Yeah, so now,
minimum wage.
okay,
We're
so
talking
this
about a
amount, you're
$15
upset.
minimum wage.
You're upset that these people aren't
especially
making
in
enough money
California, it's-
for them to live, so now they don't have a job, and the business and the owner of that business is shit out of luck. They can't produce things.
Especially in, like, California. Like, Jesus, have you
How does
seen
that
the
help
real
poor
estate there?
people?
Like,
Oh wait, how does increasing the employment rate help poor people? How does increasing
Well-
prices help poor people?
well, first of all, obviously the increase in price from the increase in minimum wage is not directly proportional to the extra money that the minimum wage workers make.
The
Like,
money, listen,
obviously
if
that's
you
not
are a
the
minimum
case.
wage worker business, if you're a business, you have minimum wage workers, they raise the wage, you've already agreed that they'd have no choice but to fire people. Unemployment harms poor people. It hurts poor people.
I don't know. What? Wait. Unemployment hurt. Wait.
Unemployment, not being able to find a job hurts poor people, yes.
Okay. If it is the case that in an economy, a significant enough amount of people cannot or will not pay their workers enough money to live, it is not... Why is that such a...
Because it harps per poor people.
Not
JR.
being paid enough money to live also harms poor people. I mean...
Not having a job harms them worse. Getting paid $0 harms people worse than the minimum wage. Higher prices for goods and services harms poor people.
First of all, the price increase. If you made $8 an hour before, and now you make $15 an hour, because the minimum wage increased, there is not a single example of that happening where the price of consumer goods actually increased by exactly double. Like,
Did I when did I say that?
Well, no, but you're saying that like higher
I said
prices
increased prices. Yeah, there's gonna be increased prices.
There's gonna be
you have to
increased
agree
prices, but there's gonna be increased prices. But well, it depends. But
they
sure,
may get
there will
they
be
may
some
get more
prices
higher wages.
increase.
Some of the people that don't get fired, they'll get higher wages, right? But they'll
Well,
have to
except
pay.
employment-
But then they'll have to pay
except-
more for goods and services, and then that basically negates the wage hike. I have a whole YouTube video about this actually. Hold them, you know them, right? Did you watch that video or no?
I didn't watch it.
It's great. But yeah, but I actually put examples in that video of businesses going out of business and them interviewing them because of the minimum wage hikes.
Yeah. Basically, Jr. I mean, yeah.
You can like. Yes. No, you go.
I get so. This is the issue, right? You want these people to have a what you say is a living wage, right? The minimum wage doesn't. The minimum wage is not. What I'm gonna say is not true, but it's true but it delivers the point of what I'm saying so that you understand, right? So whenever they raise the minimum wage, the workers' productivity is the workers' productivity in itself doesn't really change. Okay, it does, but it does, but it's like for the purpose of our conversation, right? Like, all right, I can explain it in a way that it's like technically correct. Okay, so like, what happens is the workers the marginal value product of labor, for people less than for that's less than the minimum wage, is they stop working. But because the worker is employing fewer labor, like for whatever, the marginal productivity of their labor actually goes up. The marginal revenue productivity, to be specific, goes up because they're employing fewer workers. But of course, like other workers are the other workers like are no longer have a job. Like they were talking about like big corporations earlier, and they might be able to deal with higher wages because they can borrow money, like a lot of money, but like and other things, I guess. Like, but really, the fundamental point is like no firm, no matter how big they are, can pay more than marginal revenue productivity, right? So
Yes.
you want
like an astronomically small number of people whose astronomical revenue productivity is, if your marginal revenue productivity is lower than the amount of money that you are likely to need to survive. Like, do you really think that like a large number of people are like that? Like,
not a large, but some people, yeah, some people.
yeah, and if some people are like that, then like they should have pensions. Like,
Okay,
I
but
don't know.
why? But sure, you want to give them pensions, right? But why not let them work if they could work? Like, if they could make some money, why not let them work?
It's better
Because
than
it
robbing
is-
people and then taking their money and then giving it to other people.
Hold on, we can get into the taxation of is theft arguments. Like we can get into that, but
Yeah, no,
problem-
I'm giving you the assumption that you do that, right? Like you want to have this like government program to do that. Obviously, I disagree, but that's beside the point of the issue, right? Let's just say you're going to do this program, right, for pensions. Why would you make it so that this person doesn't work when they can work for something?
Make it so they don't work.
Right, because the marginal productivity of some of the workers, if it's binding, is too low to justify a wage in excess of the price floor or the minimum wage law, right? So, why would you rather them not work or be unemployed than than working and making more than zero?
It's not like first of all, it's not like we don't already have exceptions for the minimum wage. I mean, I don't know, like, miners can make less, so it wouldn't be too, I guess you could have an exception for, like, disabled people who are, like, on pensions, but, the problem is that the benefits of having a minimum wage for the average able worker, is tremendous.
But what about the people who are unemployed now?
Again,
What about
like,
those people?
Unemployment is, like, still very low in California. It's like higher than the it's higher than, like, I don't know.
But their prices are really high too.
I mean, housing is expensive, but that's because of, like, fucking NIMBYism and, like,
Yeah, I mean,
but, like,
it doesn't. Yeah, look, JR,
Everything is
there's gonna be
expensive there.
they have a homeless problem, right? They have like people.
yeah, because of
they have like
NIMBYism,
yeah, sure. I understand, but like they have they basically regardless like whatever.
You're an ANCAP, so you obviously see that as, like, a bad thing, which I guess that's something we can agree on.
Well, I'm not an ANCAP, but yeah, I mean,
I am.
I know KingSithis is. You're like,
Oh.
I don't know what you are. You're close to one.
laissez-faire capitalist. But I mean, like, yeah, you still haven't answered my question, right? Like, you don't have to have a PhD in economics to like say that you would rather have someone who has some marginal productivity, right? They can produce some widgets per hour worked, right? Or some sandwiches per hour worked, and it's worth something to consumers, right? So his labor has some revenue productivity. Why not let that person work, and make some money, rather than forcing him to not work?
I get it's like I mean I don't think that. Well, I've already mentioned that, like, there could be exceptions to the minimum wage. There are exceptions to the
But why have it at all?
Why have it at all?
Yes.
To prevent exploitative companies from paying a full-time able-bodied worker who does have a high enough marginal revenue product.
Yeah, but if they're okay with getting paid that, who are you to stop them?
Well, they probably
If-
aren't. Like not everyone has like.
You ever seen
Not
that
everyone
one
has the
meme
ability
where it's like two people in bed where it's like, I consent, and then you have that feminist busting in is like, I don't. That's you.
I think the original meme of that was literally the I think the original one of that was like two men and, like, Jesus saying I don't or some shit. Like,
Yeah, but you know what I'm
But
saying.
JR, we're getting to the bottom of this, right? So like you say that there are some companies that are systematically underpricing the labor based on its marginal revenue
Yeah.
productivity.
Yeah.
So if that were true, then these companies would be earning ginormous profits, right?
Why would they be
Huge
earning
profits.
ginormous profits? They're just making they probably just give it back to all their shareholders.
So it's mathematical, right? So if the labor brings in but I'll use an extreme example to make the point, right? If the labor brings in $1,000 an hour, right? But you only pay $1 for that labor per hour. Every hour they work, you make $999.
Well, first of all, there are other costs involved, and as you've already stated, like profits, having higher profits just naturally makes you have less profits anyway. So
No, I'm talking about like in a production function. Like I'm saying, like if you hold other inputs constant, right, and you're just talking about adding a unit of labor, and if this labor has a revenue product of $1,000 per hour, right? So it brings in $1,000 of revenue to the company per hour worked, but you can pay $1 per hour. The labor would be extraordinarily underpriced. So don't you think that other entrepreneurs would bid up that labor? Like they would purchase that labor to make profits? Like we would agree on that, right?
yes, except the shareholders would be interested in making sure that the profit is as optimal as possible. Therefore, meaning that that all of these companies would be incentivized to underprice it.
But the thing is that they can't control other firms from entering the industry and purchasing that labor themselves and earning massive profits. So that's what would happen, right? So other entrepreneurs would come into the industry and employ that labor and earn massive profits, right? Like if they could just like conspire to keep the price of labor like that underpriced, then all these companies would just have extraordinary profits, extraordinarily high profit margins. But obviously that just won't ever happen, right? So if it even gets like 30% underpriced, that's huge in a market. It's huge for entrepreneurs. So like even if labor was priced, let's say it was $3. It's priced at $3 in the market, but its actual revenue product was $5 per hour. Then every company would make 40% on that labor,
But that's
right?
not
Per hour worked.
But like there are obviously other costs involved. Like when you look at.
I understand, but you're not understanding. Whenever
labor isn't even the primary factor in that.
Whenever you say that, you're not understanding the point, right? Like I understand that there are other costs involved, obviously, but the point is that labor in particular is what we're talking about right now, right? So in equilibrium, there's no profits that's made on the labor. It's paid exactly marginal revenue productivity discounted for time, right? So like in this scenario, I can make profits off of the labor. I'm not talking about in general, right? I'm saying off of this labor, I can make profits off of it. I can employ this labor and earn a lot of money from doing it. So other entrepreneurs would do it if that were the case. In fact, by the way, generally speaking, in a market, if labor is super underpriced, other factors involved in that production process are also probably underpriced because it's likely that entrepreneurs are just overlooking that industry, and that's why they're underpriced, right? And that once they see that they make big profits, other entrepreneurs to come in to compete those profits away. But the point is basically your claim that entrepreneurs are not paying the marginal revenue product, or like they're paying way below it. Even if it's true in the real world, that would be because of like huge distortions, like and you would have to see big profits for those companies, right? It would have to be huge profits. But
you keep saying, "Oh, I'm missing the point if I say this," but like,
yes, I understand that there are other costs involved.
Your
yes,
metric
I understand
for profits is total profits, not profit on labor, which like. So that's your metric here. Yeah. I don't.
Right, but yes, but labor is not an insignificant cost for firms, right? So, like even if labor was underpriced and all of their other factors of production were priced like at equilibrium, if the labor was significantly underpriced, then basically it depends on like the technological way that you employ other factors, but you would see in basically any circumstance you provide, like real world, what percentage of my costs are labor. Um, you would see that those companies earn large profits relative to the average firm. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, right? So other entrepreneurs would compete for that labor if that were true, and pay it more, because why would I let somebody pay $3 for labor if I can employ it for 5 and earn $995 per hour off of it, right? I wouldn't let that happen. I would employ it and earn profit on the labor.
If
So like,
I may,
just one second. I'll let you go in a second. So like,
Hello.
the only way
I'm-
to the way to increase the productivity of labor over time, the only way the way to do that is by increasing capital stock per person, per worker. So if you want these people to earn more money, the minimum wage law is not the way to do it, right? If that were true, then we should just raise it to $1 billion an hour. Obviously, I know you don't want that. Don't want that. I'm just saying, like, if you want people to increase their productivity,
well,
then
there's
you want,
the global GDP per capita isn't $1 billion, so that like physically wouldn't work. But that like the
yes,
global GDP per capita is
exactly.
above the the minimum wage is below the GDP per capita of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, because they're less productive, or largely because they're less productive than the average person. But or like the workers that the minimum wage affects. But anyway, basically the issue is here that if you want people to be richer and have higher productivity per hour worked, then you want them to have more capital goods, like more machines, more tools to work with, better buildings,
The means
better
of
software.
production, one might say.
Yeah. So you want them to have better capital goods, and that'll make them more productive, and they'll earn more money, right? That's how the economy. That's how you get economic growth, and people earn more in wages. So you should be advocating for lower taxes, lower government spending, because that'll increase the productivity of labor. But go ahead, fascism.
I was going to say a couple things. So the expectation that in like a fairly competitive market that firms would move towards paying pricing labor at the optimal rate pretty much ignores the existence of things like path dependency or behavioral inertia, where effectively we have to remember that the average employer is not a doctoral economist. The average employer is not sitting there combing over what the exact optimal pricing is. They're not out there running computed general equilibrium models to figure those things out. So there's a tendency to be sticky towards things that feel good enough, but are not necessarily good enough. On the capital deepening front, yes, absolutely. However, the belief that you can just accomplish that by having really low taxes and really low spending is very 1970s economics, like before econometrics became like a really major thing and people started looking at like second and third and fourth order effects and realizing that spent appropriately, modern economies can actually handle relatively high tax burdens, especially if you deliberately do things like full expensing for capital expenditures and you spend things responsibly. Like, I think the US is probably an outlier there because the most technical term I can find is that we're fucking stupid. We don't usually have that kind of foresight or like rigorous thought process going into these things. When we, for instance, left the gold standard, we spent that on tax cuts and wars. A lot of other countries, unironically, spent that on capital deepening and the human equivalent of capital deepening, which would be things like education and workforce development.
Yeah. So what? I guess like there's like a few things in there. So like none of what you said is like really countering what I said about like wages. I guess like I was never implying or saying that like they have like general equilibrium models or like to try and compute the value of the wage or something. You just that definitely was not where I was going with it. It's just there's a tendency in a market for the wage to be equal to the discounted marginal revenue product. That's all that's the only claim really. So and it reaches that in the ERE, but I guess like on the issue of increasing capital per person. The reason the very reason I said that is because of the second, third, and fourth level effects, right? So like if you got rid of profit taxes and income taxes and government stopped spending so much money, it would free up resources for the private sector, and there would be higher savings. And of course, like you need savings for capital formation. So with greater savings, you'd have more capital formation. With great enough net savings, you would have an increase in the supply of capital goods because you have net investment, and then aggregate profits that allow for the economy to expand and lengthen production. So, but anyway, I guess like, yeah, everything else you said, I guess like, I don't really have a comment.
Yeah. Well, that feels largely correct. We have to remember that one, governments also tend to be investors in capital goods. They tend not to be the same capital goods you're thinking of. They tend not to just buy machinery for firms. But what they do tend to do is, like, for instance, if I remember correctly, before like 2024, the US government in aggregate, between things like ARPA, DARPA, the NIH, what's the other one I'm thinking? The NSF, was the largest single funder of basic science research, for instance. So in the research and development area there. Also, the distinction that I was making about firms pricing or not pricing wages at equilibrium was really the distinction between nominative and positive views, what people ought to do versus what they actually
Normative versus
do.
positive, yeah.
Yeah, versus what they actually do, which is kind of the argument for having an overarching body that says, here's the literature, we're going to kind of force you to go in that direction, kind of thing, which is what ideally a minimum wage or a labor standard or something like that does. Ideally, it pushes you in the direction of optimality. Again, that is heavily, sorry, what's the word I was looking for? That's heavily influenced by the same issue with firms going towards a minimum wage, which is we're assuming that the government who does that isn't the American government. You know, it's a government that's competent and capable of doing that. What was the other thing I was going to say? No, really.
You're the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, really.
Minimum
really
wage
that.
bad.
Yeah. You said the government could invest in capital goods and science research, and then also like a theoretical, like competent government could help with a minimum wage law, basically, if they were theoretically competent, unlike the U.S. And what else?
What was the other? It wasn't just that a government theoretically invests in capital in capex or things adjacent to capex. It's that they basically do. Even the stupid governments do, but smarter ones tend to do it better. They tend to have like fewer cost overruns. Like I know the cost overrun for even basic infrastructure spending in the United States is sometimes 100% cost overrun, where you don't see that even in the countries that most Americans would assume would be more expensive. You don't see that in your average EU country, for instance.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a issue like with what you're so like you're saying that like there's the government can invest in capital goods to like increase economic growth like you would say I like is that like would you say like the government can do that like the government can intelligently or like productively or like can reliably and like a competent government, right? You're saying like
Mhm.
like it could reliably invest in capital goods in a way that is like going to increase the
Yes,
stock of capital. So like there's a like
absolutely.
okay, so like yeah, I guess like definitely the economic calculation problem comes like right up to my head whenever I hear something like that. And also like there's a scarcity of capital goods, right? So
Mhm.
like like when the government invests, a private firm can't invest because the government does. So
Mhm.
so like the government would have to invest at a higher rate of return than this theoretical private firm would. So
Yes.
the private firm would theoretically be able to invest at. But yeah, the government doesn't have profits and losses, so
Can
like
I explain
I
something?
don't. Sure.
Do you know what the broken window fallacy is?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
basically, how it applies to this that also applies to the state as well, because every single dollar that the state forcibly extracts from you is basically them breaking a window, because that's money that could have been spent on something that you actually wanted, but is now being spent on something that some bureaucrat or some government crony is deciding to spend it on.
In fairness,
And
he did acknowledge that whenever I brought up the fact that every dollar the government invests in capital goods is a dollar the private sector can't. But yeah, it's a
Exactly.
good point. It's a good point that KingSithis brings up that like is like overlooked. It's like the seen and the unseen. Everything the
Mhm.
state does can't is being taken away from the private sector to do.
one last small
Yeah,
Um,
it's
point,
dead weight
one last
loss.
small point, because like any argument that you say like, oh well, this country did very, very well with a government, I could easily just say like, oh well, they probably would have been better had the state not been as rigorous.
right. Yeah. Like the counterfactual would it would
It's very
when the
interesting
government's
then that every time the state isn't that rigorous, then it's worse though.
Is it?
I'm sorry.
Well, what countries have the best standard of living?
OECD countries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do OECD countries have in common?
I mean, they have stock markets.
They're countries
They
America likes.
This is true.
Think about that. There's
This is
plenty of
true.
Well, the thing
incredibly
is, a
wealthy,
lot of
high
these
standard
countries,
countries that are not there.
they may have very high
Huh.
taxes and rigorous welfare benefits, but in terms of their free market, they're pretty free.
yeah, I mean,
Freer than the
Yeah,
United States for most of them,
it's
actually.
almost like free markets with taxation and government benefits work better than what you advocate
Yeah,
for.
but I could then make
No,
the
no.
argument. I could then
Yeah.
make the argument that they would have been more better off had this if they had free markets without all that state intervention.
Way better off. Like the structure of production is like so distorted now. Like it's like it's just unbelievably distorted by the state. Like it's like the way that production takes place is just like way different than it would be in a free market. Like it's like all suboptimal because of fiscal policy and monetary policy and like and credit expansion.
Yeah, and I mean, that difference, the issue there then is that the counterfactual becomes so different from reality that it becomes hard to prove positively or negatively the claim that in a theoretical other world where you did something completely differently, it would be completely different.
Well, you could prove a priori.
Honestly, in something as complex as a global economy or even a national economy, it stops being that easy.
Well, the problem is what you're doing is you're looking at empirical studies, and then based on that, you're choosing what you think is the best outcome. But the thing is, we're
Although the empirical
choosing
studies are suggesting what the best outcome is, like
whatever.
Yeah.
But the argument that we're making is that we can show what would be the best outcome based on the fact that we live in a world of scarcity and based on the outcomes of human action a priori without looking at a study.
Yeah, I mean, we I guess like I'll say like now, like of course, like whether or not the state doing something or a firm doing something or a private firm doing something is like better for accumulating capital is empirical, but through theory, we could know that there's a general tendency for capital to accumulate if private firms are the ones in reinvesting. So like, but yeah, I mean, like we would be significantly richer today if we didn't have like the regulatory apparatus, the insane government spending and taxation and insane monetary policy that we have today, and all the
Real
manipulations
hasn't been tried.
Yeah,
I mean, in the U.S.,
it hasn't.
like, are you talking about like broadly across the OECD or in the U.S.? Because, well, the U.S. tax system is highly distortionary. The amount is paltry compared to the rest of the OECD, and has been pretty much since the end of World War II, basically.
I wouldn't say it's paltry, but it's less, like on average. Like government spending as a percentage of GDP. Government spending as a percentage.
Did I say spending? I meant revenue. Sorry.
Oh, revenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Revenue as a percentage of GDP. I guess like, but I guess like the burden is going. I mean, the burden is whichever one's larger, right? Revenue or spending.
That's part of the equation.
According to Rothbard, which I agree with, and we can debate that if you want, but yeah, basically like, like the government spends 40% of GDP in the United States, right?
37, but yeah, close enough.
40 according to
37% most recent year.
37% some sources will say, but it's about 40, like because the federal government underreports like some of the spending that they do for like insurance disasters, like FEMA.
Totally shocked. I wouldn't be totally shocked.
Yeah. So it's about 40. It's about 40, like close to 40.
Let's go with that. Yeah, more or less.
So like in the OECD countries, it's like 45 to 50. You get to like France, it's insane. But anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, if we didn't have like, if all these countries like had, like genuine free exchange and production without like regulation, like without regulations and restrictions on exchange and production, I mean, they would all be significantly richer over time. You could do that through economic theory, because you would know they would have far more savings if they lived under a world of laissez-faire. The savings rates would be significantly higher, and so capital would be accumulating much faster in those worlds, and also production would be like not distorted away from like its relative lowest cost, like or what its relative lowest cost would be in a free market. But yeah, I mean, the world is just like so much different than what it would look like in a laissez-faire society. Like how it would look, nobody knows. It would just be like drastically different.
I think it would
we would have what you call it, Star Trek replicators.
Yeah,
probably not.
It would take time.
Wait, hold it. Aren't you the rape insurance guy? Aren't you like the?
Whoa! What?
I swear to God, like wasn't there like?
Hey, let's not derail this. I'm learning.
Yeah. So like, I mean, anyway, we could. I don't know what like. Okay. Anyway,
that was
so
very confusing.
But I guess like
I swear you. It must have been you, or was it some other person? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we do believe in private insurance agencies that would offer the service of law protection.
Yeah, let's not derail the conversation.
But that has nothing to do with minimum wage.
Yeah, but anyway, like
okay, fine.
On the topic of capital accumulation, like if you think of like how much, like if the United States economy grew 2% faster since 1860, like that the GDP per capita here would be over $2 million in the United States, right?
No, that's not true because we would import Indians and divide it amongst them.
Anyway,
oh my goodness, bro. Okay, so like anyway, but basically the point is like over time, like the economy is capital is accumulating like slower every year, and these like over time, like the compound effect is massive, right? Like if we had a free market, and we were and capital was accumulating 2% faster, like over time, the difference is just insane. It's drastic. So like the cost of these taxes and regulation, all the government spending and distortion of production is just so enormous over time because of how much capital we are legitimately foregoing thanks to the state.
So there's three
fuck
issues
the state.
here. There's three issues here. One, the assumption of linearity from a time like 1860 is carrying an enormous amount of weight. We can't assume, well, if I make this one change, I will get exactly this amount of change over time. These things tend to have, like, you've used the word marginal several times. Yeah, marginal utility curves are what's the word I'm looking for? Diminishing. Like that's the layman equivalent of that term is diminishing returns. So we can't assume that. Two, for the returns on investment for state versus private investment in capital goods, it tends to be the case that if we're looking for the place where the state is best suited versus the private market, it's in the most upstream of the goods. So remember how I mentioned basic science funding. It's best case where like your government funds your universities that train your scientists. It would be worst case if you said the government should make your iPhone, because that's so downstream that it's unequivocal that private firms do a much better job. And the third one is when I said the absolute revenue / tax burden isn't the entire picture. What I was referring to was deadweight loss. You can calculate the amount of quote unquote damage or distortion that a given revenue source inflicts on an economy per dollar, and there is a really, really wide delta between something like a corporate income tax and a land value tax, for instance. So the makeup of the taxes makes a difference.
Oh yeah, corporate taxes are far worse to total product over time on equivalent rates and scales. But I mean, anyway,
Corporate
first I'd like
taxes
to
are a
address
double tax.
Yeah, the first thing I would like to say is like I should have said like before I went on about like 2% faster capital accumulation since 1860. Like, by the way, guys, I probably should have said like I'm not saying that capital would have actually accumulated at 2% per year how we had laissez-faire, like necessarily, right? Like it may have been 1.5%, 1.9%, 2.7%. Well, like it wasn't going to go in some a linear line like on a graph. You could see, like, that's not how it was going to go. Or like linear GDP or capital accumulation growth rate. It would be exponential on a graph, but you get what I'm saying. So like, that wasn't like that wasn't my claim. I guess I should have done a better job of explaining that. But yeah, I guess like I guess like the total amount of tax though is what's most important. Or like the tax rates are in my view what are most important. So like
the GDP is what's most important, right? That's the thing that neoliberals care the most about.
I mean, I definitely care about GDP. That's very important, but I guess like this is like I'm not right now. Like you're smuggling in like other things. Like I'm not talking about ethics really right now. But anyway, I guess like yeah. So like basically for fiscal policy, my view is that generally saying got you. Saying yeah. So generally speaking, the amount of tax and the scale of it is what's most is what's going to matter most for total product. So I'll give you an example. Like I guess like if you wanted to destroy the economy, you would have 100% profit tax. That would make every investment unprofitable, every production process unprofitable. We would go back to autarky. it would be an absolute disaster, like as a thought experiment, right? 100% tax, everything's been nationalized effectively, on profit.
Awful.
I guess like
Absolutely awful.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But if you wanted like but basically the amount of the tax, like, or the scale and the rate is what's most important to me. So like I'll give you an example. Right? A 1% profit tax is better than a 99% income tax. So like the rate of the tax and like how much it affects yeah. So like how much it affects the how much it's like actually extracting and is going to matter a lot, and like and like how much it like changes behavior from what would be in a free market.
Yeah.
So like like so like those are going to matter. So like I just wanted to emphasize that, like, to me the rate and the percentage, like I see a lot of people like denigrating tariffs like as if like they're uniquely uniquely reduce total product more than other taxes. I mean,
They actually do.
in really specific terms, it's empirical. But I guess like in theoretical terms, like if you just say like if countries don't react to the way that you do tariffs, like if there was no like rent seeking from companies or anything, then they would be very similar to other taxes when it comes to reduction in total product. But I guess like I would, but I definitely, by the way, I definitely would rather have tariffs than profit taxes. But I don't mean to like make this a whole discussion about taxes. But anyway,
So the
yeah,
issue,
Minimum wage
I'm
bad.
sorry. So the issue
But yeah,
here is, oh, sorry, go on.
I don't know if I'm getting the conversation too derailed. So just like stop me, KingSith, if I'm doing that.
No, you're good. I think minimum wage bad.
But I was
Yeah,
going
I
to
do
say
too.
that the issue here is that, so I don't always remember the equation off the top of my head. I started to just, just like with math in school, become the person who just has the calculator at this point. But the dead weight loss equations, or rather, if you actually go a step above that and you go to things like the marginal cost of public funds, which factors that in, this situation that you're describing kind of is what makes that up. It's not just, it is largely how it affects behavior. Yes, in a world where no one reacted negatively, there was zero elasticity and all this, then actually all taxes would have the exact same cost. But that's not the world we live in. That's also the nominal reason why you see that there are different acceptable rates on different bases. There have historically, though that's a little complicated, been countries with 90+% income tax rates. The caveat is nobody paid those rates, they were imaginary. But you will never see a 90% broad value-added tax because it's incompatible with that base. You will never see a 90%, what's another good example of something that's always taxed really low? Property tax. Yeah, well, you do see 90% tariffs sometimes when people
But
are
nobody
really
pays
stupid.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your point is like the Laffer curve. Like if you raise the tax too much, then it becomes it becomes self-defeating. And that if you raise the tax too much, then you actually get less revenue. So like if you had 100% tax, nobody would work. Like for an income tax, for instance, or if you had 100% tariff, nobody would buy foreign products. But if you had like a 50%, maybe somewhere between 0 and 100 you have the optimal amount, but if you have 0 and 100 then you get
and every
so like
tax has its own curve.
Right, exactly, for sure. Yeah a bunch of economists like came up with like that theory, and then kind of like Laffer kind of formalized it. But yeah, what you're saying is true and important. But like,
by the
I
way,
guess
do you
like
know where it sits in the U.S.? The general Laffer curve for income taxes, because a lot of people talk about it but don't actually know where the inflection point on that curve sits.
I mean, you could have a graph that would say like what maximizes revenue, but it's like hard to know, like for sure. But like, I don't know, like what your graph would say, right? Like, I don't know what I don't know what you like. Maybe it's like 30% something. I don't know.
Oh, if only. See, that's the problem. The graph he put together is like economical. However, the reputation that came with that graph is completely absent. The rate where the curve inflects in the US is between 60 and 70%. Now, granted, you have to remember something important here. When he became influential in government, the top income tax rate was already 70%, plus almost realistically, when you're counting FICA, you have to count it twice, so it's about 15%. Even though there's technically a cap, but we'll ignore that. And then you had state income taxes. Yeah, so the tax wedge theoretically on income could have been as high as 80%. So it made sense for him to come in and say you need to cut taxes, but then it feels as if the fact that the Reagan administration went all the way down into the 20s made people just have this image in their head that Laffer curve just gets infinitely better as you go towards zero, when in reality, the inflection point is high as a motherfucker. By the way, for the US right now, we are actually still technically for income on the wrong side. We're technically still above. Because remember, think, what are we, 37% at the top. If you lived in California, that's another 14 or so percent. So that's 47, that's 51. And if you were self-employed, it could be as high as about 66.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like I mean all that stuff. The United States, like their revenue, like tax revenue as a percentage of GDP is like lower than OECD countries for sure. Like we don't raise that much revenue relative to them, like as a percentage of the size of the economy or whatever. But I guess like if your goal is like to maximize tax revenue, then yeah, there's like some optimal point for sure. But of course, like if your goal is to get rich or like increase the stock of capital per person, then it's to like not have it's like have like as little tax as possible, like stop like distorting production like as soon as possible and as much as possible. But yeah, like one of the things were you saying that like a tax like you said that a tax that doesn't change people's behavior would like have equivalent effects?
If no taxes changed anybody's behavior, you would basically see the same kind of distortion for every tax, but in reality, every tax changes behavior differently, so it has a different level of distortion.
I would say like okay, there's even I would say like there I would not. I mean, I think like yeah, you're definitely gonna have less of an effect, but there's like I guess like an important thing to say is like profit taxes would still be more destructive like on scale and on even if like even if this
special sorry go on.
I'll actually debate you on tariffs being worse because I actually profit taxes are way worse in my opinion, but like to total product over time, but like profit taxes, they're gonna like tariffs are like for example, we could use tariffs as an example. They're gonna reduce like they're gonna be distortive to like businesses that import, like what percentage of your goods are imported, your factors or like your intermediate products are imported. Like that's gonna like really affect like how profitable your business is ex post tariff.
That's what
like
makes it worse, actually.
Yeah, if your business doesn't make any profit though, then like on a profit tax, if your business makes the reason profit taxes would be worse is because you're taxed pro rata to value creation, kind of like they don't collect the tax exactly like economic profits, they just do net income, so it's not like exactly what I'm saying, but like the more profitable you are as a business, the more punished you are. Like you take away funds away from the most productive firms in the economy, like the ones that could reinvest at high rates of return and that have savings there to reinvest to like increase the stock of capital per person. Are those exact firms those are the ones where money's being taken away, right? Like firms that make no money, that aren't like creating value, they don't pay any profit taxes because they don't have no profit. So like but yeah, I mean tariffs are agnostic to value creation. Like theoretically, I could be making zero profits and I could be importing a bunch of good, or I could be either not importing or importing. It's like case by case, right? Profit taxes make sure, like, are you creating value? Yes. Okay, we will tax you. Like we will make sure that you have less money because you're making profit, and if you make more profit, you get taxed more. But anyway, yeah. So like, yeah.
Two things. One, you inadvertently nailed one of the things that makes tariffs so distorting on their head, and it's the case that it might seem even counterintuitive depending on your standpoint. The narrower the base, the more distortionary it is. And I think the perfect hyperbolic example would be, imagine if I imposed a 20% tax on men named Steve. Only men named Steve.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's incredibly distortionary because it's like, being named Steve means nothing, being a man means nothing here. And I'm just arbitrarily doing that. Yeah, tariffs tend to hit a very small percentage of the economy really hard. Because that's another thing. The narrower your base is, the higher your rate needs to be to make things make sense. But the other one is you have to remember that for advanced economies, and this is the situation specifically that I'm working in, because the whatchamacallit, the math works a bit differently in like developing economies. But in like advanced OECD style economies, the things you would tariff are often raw materials. So input costs go up for producers in your country.
Yeah.
Now it's different if you have a thriving, incredible natural resource industry in your country. But that's not the norm in OECD. Like the US, if they wanted to, but they would need to direct funds towards developing that, could theoretically replace many of the things we tariff. But that's not what we're doing. Instead, we picked a rate we picked a mechanism that, remember they're bragging, $300 billion. That's 0.9% of GDP. And not only, I don't remember the exact number, I forget, but it's incredibly high. It actually gets the highest distortion score of any normal tax. But we also lose our friends. And trade is good. Trade is incredibly good. Like, people do not understand the GDP loss that comes with even leaving a common market. I think the long run effect of Brexit on the UK is negative 4 to 6%. Like, and they weren't even part of the same country. They were part of a fucking customs union.
Oh yeah, I mean, Ricardo and Adam Smith tried to debunk this like 250 years ago, like this whole like nonsense about, you know, how the country that had like that had trade surpluses was the one that was or like that was like the ultimate goal, was like completely misguided, obviously, and wrong. Yeah. So they debunked it, and like that's like set the economics profession like to be anti-tariff like ever since, basically, with a few exceptions who happen to work in the Trump administration for whatever. Yeah, like a coincidence, I guess.
Anti-broad tariff, because tariffs can also serve a Pigovian like function.
Sure, yeah.
Those are fundamentally different.
Yeah, sure, right. If you, like,
So
I guess.
wait,
Like,
are we all in agreement? Minimum wage bad?
No.
No. Why not?
No.
Minimum wage bad.
Because the current the current consensus among like economic institutions when it comes to OECD countries is that as long as your ratio of minimum wage to median wage is less than 50 or 60%, the distortions tend to be outweighed by the increase in aggregate demand and the decrease in welfare spending. If you go higher than that, you have a problem, usually. That's why you literally, I can't think of a developed country with a minimum wage above 60% of the median.
So like, why?
But there's countries that don't have a minimum wage, though.
Yeah, and those tend to be either one of two things. Either they are substantially poorer, or they're the Nordic countries, where they just kind of stepped around the minimum wage, and the workers' unions set the minimum wage. So they just have an extra governmental government made up of workers.
Why do you think we should have a minimum wage at all, though?
For the increases in aggregate demand and the decreases in welfare spending, it tends to have a net growth positive effect, at least in developed economies.
Well, anyways, guys, it's kind of getting late for me, so I'm going to bed.
Understandable.
Have a good night, guys.
All right.
Have a good night, everyone.